About a month ago, I decided it was time to part ways with my old TV setup. I'd just upgraded to a wall-mounted 65 Beast, so the older one, which was still decent, just chunky, was now taking up space in our little dining nook. My girlfriend Jess had been bugging me for weeks to do something about it, and honestly, I couldn't blame her. It was just sitting there, taking up space and looking sad. So I threw it up on Craigslist, stand included. I figured, hey, maybe someone needs a second-hand entertainment setup. At first, nothing. Crickets. I was debating slashing the price because, truthfully, it wasn't the deal of the century. But then I got a message. Some guy hit me up, said he might be interested and wanted to check it out. I asked if he was serious. I wasn't about to play host for a no-show. And he said, yeah, definitely. We agreed on 7 p.m. the next evening, and I gave him my address. We live in a pretty standard 2-story place out in Pinehurst, just me and Jess. I didn't really want to deal with hauling the whole bulky setup into my car to meet in a gas station parking lot or whatever. Figured it was fine just having the dude swing by. Next night, 7 p.m. rolls around. I wait. Nothing. By 7:30, I shot him a quick message, just like, hey, still coming? He replied that he was on his way, so I waited some more. He didn't get there until 8, and by that time it was already dark outside. Not exactly ideal. When he finally pulled up, my first thought was, well, that's not gonna work. He was driving this tiny little 4-door, maybe a Kia or something, and there was just no way both the TV and the stand would fit. I watched him slowly cruise by the house, and then keep driving. For a second I thought maybe he had the wrong place, but then he parked way down the street, like practically out of view. Kinda weird, but whatever. He walked up, and I met him at the front step. He had the hood of his sweatshirt pulled up, and looked to be in his mid-20s, maybe a bit younger. I invited him in. The TV and stand were just a few steps inside the door. I asked if he was planning to buy it, and instead of saying anything, he just stared at the setup for a few seconds. Like, full-on silent. Just stood there. So after standing there in silence like a statue, he finally goes, yeah, I think I want it, but I don't get paid until Friday. I just kind of stared at him, not even trying to hide my irritation. Like, dude, it's Tuesday. Why are you here now? I started slowly nudging him back toward the door, kind of in that passive-aggressive way where you casually start walking someone out before actually saying it's time to go. As we walked, I asked, then why'd you come today if you can't buy it yet? He shrugged and said something like, I just wanted to check it out in person. I didn't even respond to that. We stepped outside, exchanged a quick, take care, or whatever, and I closed the door behind him. The whole time this was happening, Jess had been chilling upstairs in our room. I flopped down on the couch and turned on the new mounted TV, just trying to forget the weird interaction. A couple minutes later, she came down the stairs looking a little freaked out and asked, why is that guy walking around our backyard? I literally sat up like, wait, what? She said from upstairs she saw him leave the front, then just casually stroll around the side of our house. Now, I'm not usually a paranoid person, but that instantly set off alarm bells. I jumped up and went to the front window. His car was still parked way down the block. Still there. Creepy. I told Jess I had no idea why he'd be back there, and then I walked over to the back windows to see what was going on. At first, I couldn't spot anything. I asked her exactly where she saw him go, and she pointed out behind this old bush we've been meaning to trim for like a year. I squinted out the window, then flipped on the backyard light. That's when I leaned to the side to get a better view of the bushes. And holy crap, there he was. Not fully, but enough. I could see part of his hoodie and like the corner of his face. He was crouched down, hiding. My heart dropped. I opened the window just a crack and yelled, "Hey, you need to leave right now or I'm calling the cops." No hesitation. The guy bolted, full-on sprint. I ran back to the front and Jess and I watched him tear down the street, jump in his little sedan, and speed off. After that, Craigslist post deleted. Gone. I reported the whole thing too. The worst part is I gave that guy my actual address. Rookie mistake. I keep thinking about what could have happened if Jess hadn't looked out that window. So this happened maybe 5 or 6 months ago when I was dragging through a slow afternoon at my old office job. You know those days where there's literally nothing left to do, but you're still stuck there watching the clock? Yeah, one of those. I usually just scroll on my phone or browse dumb stuff online to kill time. Sometimes I even poke around Craigslist, not looking for anything specific, just to laugh at weird listings or dream about buying a motorcycle I absolutely can't afford. That day, I ended up stumbling into the missed connections section. I'd never really explored it before, but figured it might be good for a laugh. If you're not familiar, it's this part of Craigslist where people basically shoot their shot at strangers they saw in real life but didn't talk to. Like, "Hey cute girl at Starbucks, you dropped your keys and I chickened out." That kind of thing. I always thought it was a little sketchy but weirdly fascinating. So I'm scrolling through these posts, maybe 4 or 5 in, and one of them hits me like a brick. The title was something like "Blonde Girl in Fairbrook," which is my town, both where I live and work. Weird, right? I click on it, half expecting it to be random, but nope. The message said, "Saw you walking down Oak Ridge Thursday night. Then again at Target on Friday wearing a Braves hat. Let me know if I can swing by sometime." Cue the internal sirens. Because yeah, I did go for a walk Thursday night, right along Oak Ridge. And Friday? Yup, I hit Target for snacks, and absolutely was wearing my Braves cap because I hadn't washed my hair and needed to look semi-put together. So now I'm sitting there like, did someone seriously see me twice in 2 days and decide to post about it anonymously? I couldn't decide if it was creepy or kind of flattering, but mostly I felt uneasy. Like, okay, maybe this person just lives nearby and saw me by chance. But also, how many people would recognize me from that and mention both events? Something about it felt off. I didn't reply, obviously. I just shut the tab and tried to shake the weird feeling. Later that evening, after work, my friend Jordan came over. We do dinner together pretty often since she lives a few blocks away. I told her about the post while we were making frozen pizzas, and she immediately wanted to see it. So I opened my laptop and went back to the Craigslist page. And this is where it went from weird to full-on what the actual hell territory. There was a new post. Brand new. Like, posted maybe 40 minutes before I checked. The title. "Blonde Girl in Fairbrook. Again." My stomach dropped. This one said, "Saw you leaving work today. Really hope you check these and reach out." At this point, Jordan and I were just staring at each other like holy shit. This person was following me. There's no other way to explain it. First, the walk. Then Target. Now literally watching me leave my office. We ran around the house pulling the curtains and peeking out the windows like we were in a horror movie. Didn't see anyone sketchy outside, but still. My work parking lot's pretty big and busy, and I guess it wouldn't be hard to blend in with the other cars. But man, the idea that someone was tracking me, actually watching me, was freaking me out. For a few days after that, I was hyper aware of everything. Checked Craigslist constantly. Walked to my car with my keys gripped between my fingers like they tell you to do. Nothing new popped up though. No more posts. I didn't notice anyone following me or anything. It was like the mystery stalker just disappeared. Fast forward maybe a week, and something happened that really pushed things over the edge. I got home from work, tossed my stuff down in the kitchen, and was walking into the living room when I caught a glimpse of a car idling out front through the window. Not like across the street or parked normally. It was kinda half in front of my driveway, half just sitting there in that awkward, not visiting, not just passing through way. I walked up to the window to get a better look, but the second I moved the curtain, the car slowly pulled off and disappeared around the corner. I couldn't catch the plate, or even see who was inside. Just gone. The very next day, I was driving home and ended up noticing a car pull in behind me. Same one. I recognized the back bumper and the busted passenger side brake light. At first, I was like, okay, maybe coincidence. But then I took a right turn. And they did too. Then another. And then another. 3 turns in a row, all pretty specific ones, not just random roads. That's when my stomach dropped. I was legit terrified they were going to follow me all the way back to my house. I was already rehearsing in my head how I'd drive straight to the police station or a grocery store parking lot or somewhere public. But weirdly, right before I made the final turn to my block, the car turned left instead. Still, that was it for me. I was done pretending this wasn't real. That night I sat down with my laptop, pulled up the old Craigslist post, and finally sent a reply. I didn't sugarcoat it. I asked them straight up why they were watching me and told them to stop. Told them to leave me the hell alone. I hit send, closed my inbox, and just kind of hoped that would either scare them off or give me some answers. Either one, honestly, would have been better than silence. A few hours later, probably close to 9 or 9:30, I checked my messages again. Nothing. No response. No updates. I figured maybe that was it. Maybe they got the message and backed off. I walked into the living room to chill and try to forget about it when, yep, the same damn car was back. Parked out front, same spot as before. But this time, when I looked closer, the car looked empty. Nobody sitting in the front seat. No movement. Just parked there like it belonged. And then, something out of the corner of my eye made me freeze. On the far right edge of the yard, near the driveway, I saw a guy walking. Like, actually walking through my yard. Heading toward the front of the house. Toward my door. My whole body went cold. I didn't hesitate. I ducked away from the window, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911 as fast as I could. I was shaking so hard I almost dropped it. As it started ringing, I heard the sound of someone trying the front doorknob. Then a single knock. Not like a neighbor knock. A slow, deliberate knock. I ran to my bedroom, locked the door, and tried to explain everything to the dispatcher while keeping my voice down. She told me to stay put and wait for officers to arrive. I didn't dare peek out or even move after that. I didn't want to see anything. Didn't want to know what was going on out there. About 15 minutes later, I saw the red and blue lights flash through my blinds. The officers knocked, I let them in, and they did a sweep of the house and yard. And here's the part that still gives me chills. They found him. The guy hadn't run. He was in my backyard, crouched down by a window, apparently trying to force it open. I was beyond grateful I had called when I did. I told the cops everything, about the Craigslist stuff, the car, the stalking, all of it. It seemed like once I told him to back off, he decided to escalate instead. Since that night, I packed up and moved across Fairbrook to a second-floor apartment in a busy building. I still double-check my locks more than I probably need to, and I haven't opened Craigslist once, not even for furniture, not even for a laugh. Alright, so before I jump into this, let me just say, yeah, I was young and kinda dumb back then. Definitely not the brightest moment of my life, but hey, you live and learn. I was 22 at the time, freshly moved into a one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town, trying to figure out life on my own for the first time. Had a part-time job that barely covered rent and groceries, but I'd managed to stash away just enough cash to think about getting a car. Thing is, my budget was laughable. I knew I wasn't going to be driving anything fancy, just needed something that turned on and got me from A to B without catching fire. Public transport wasn't horrible where I lived, but honestly, having a car would have made things 10 times easier. So I did what any broke 20-something would do. I hit up Craigslist. Spent a few days scrolling through listings, dodging obvious scams, until I stumbled across a car that seemed halfway decent. Price looked fair, photos didn't scream junkyard survivor, and the post had just gone up. I messaged the seller pretty quick. Guy replies within the hour and introduces himself as Josh. Came off pretty chill over text. We messaged back and forth for a bit, and I figured, yeah, I should probably go check it out in person before handing over any cash. Josh offered to let me come by that night, but I said the next evening would work better. Now here's where the first red flag popped up. I asked if we could meet somewhere public, like a shopping plaza or a gas station. Mostly because that's where the bus line dropped off, not because I thought anything shady was going on. But he insisted I come to his place, said the car wasn't drivable yet and it'd be easier that way. Instead of listening to my gut, I just said, okay, sure. Not my proudest decision. So the next night rolls around 8:30-ish, and I grab the bus to his neighborhood, some suburb outside of Northfield, like 40 minutes from my place. After the ride, I still had to walk a few blocks down these dim, quiet streets. Not sketchy exactly, but definitely not well lit. I texted Josh when I was about a block away, but no reply. Eventually I found the house. Looked pretty standard. Split level, plain siding, a basketball hoop over the garage. The car was right there in the driveway. I walked up to the front door and gave it a few knocks. No answer. I stood there for a bit, just awkwardly waiting, and then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Josh. So yeah, I'm standing on his porch, slightly cold, slightly nervous, when my phone buzzes. It's a text from Josh. Just come on in. What? The car I came to see was literally parked right there in the driveway. Why would I need to go inside the house? I hesitated for a moment, trying to convince myself it was probably nothing. Maybe he needed to grab the keys or some paperwork or whatever. I know now how stupid this sounds, but back then, I wasn't thinking straight. Curiosity and eagerness totally overpowered my common sense. So I slowly opened the door, it wasn't locked, and poked my head in like, hey, I'm here? No answer. The place looked super average. Beige carpet, tan walls, family photos on the wall, though I didn't really look too closely. I stepped maybe 4 feet inside and just kind of stood there awkwardly, waiting. No sign of Josh. Then out of nowhere, I heard him. Yeah, come on in. This way. His voice was coming from somewhere deeper in the house, around a corner. I couldn't see him at all, which was weird. Something about his tone felt off, but again, I brushed it off. I took a few steps toward the voice, and then, bam, total darkness. The lights just died, like all of them. I couldn't even see my own hands. My heart immediately started pounding. I remember whispering nope out loud as I spun around, trying to find the way back out. But I had zero sense of direction. For all I knew, I was heading into a closet. That's when I heard it. Fast footsteps behind me. Getting closer. I panicked. Full-on fight-or-flight mode kicked in, and I started stumbling forward, only to smack my shoulder into a wall. I bounced off it, trying to orient myself, and just kept reaching forward, praying for a doorknob or anything familiar. Then I felt it. Someone grabbed my arm. Just the forearm, but hard enough to freeze me for half a second. Pure instinct took over. I ripped my arm free and bolted. Somehow, like some miracle, I smacked right into the front door. I clawed around until I found the handle and yanked it open. The night outside, even though it was dark, felt blinding compared to the pitch-black house. I didn't look back. I just sprinted. I think I ran the full 4 blocks without stopping once, adrenaline pushing me like I was in some kind of horror movie. Once I got back to the main street near the bus stop, I kept looking over my shoulder like a paranoid lunatic. But nobody followed me. Eventually, the next bus showed up, and I got on it still shaking. When I got home, first thing I did was check Craigslist, and yep, the post was gone, completely wiped. I sat there for a while processing what had just happened, then decided to call the non-emergency police line and report the whole thing. Looking back, I still can't believe I actually walked into a stranger's house like that. Just, wow. Major wake-up call. I did end up getting a different car off Craigslist a few weeks later, but I made damn sure to meet that seller in a super public place. Broad daylight, people around, the whole checklist. Still use Craigslist from time to time, but I've got rules now, and I don't break them. Ever. So a couple years back, I was trying to get rid of my old beater, an '06 Chevy Trailblazer. Yeah, I know, ancient. It was my main ride for a while, but I figured it was finally time to part ways. Surprisingly, it still ran solid and didn't give me too much trouble, so I thought I might get a bit of cash for it. I threw it up on Craigslist, mostly because that's where I originally bought it, and honestly, I'd had good luck there in the past. Snapped some pics right outside my townhouse in Granville, listed it for $2,000, and crossed my fingers. Wasn't desperate to sell or anything, so I just let it sit for a bit. Took a couple days, and then I got my first nibble. Just a simple, "Is the car still available?" type of message. I replied, "Yeah, still got it," and the guy responded almost immediately, wanting to come check it out. We set it up for the next evening after he got off work. Said his name was Marcus, and that he clocked out around 8 p.m. I didn't really want someone I didn't know rolling up to my house at night, so I suggested we meet up in the Walmart parking lot just down the road. It's one of those huge ones where half the lot is practically deserted all the time, so it seemed like a safe bet. Plus, truckers park overnight there all the time, so it felt public enough. Marcus was cool with that plan, so the next day I headed out a bit early and parked in the far back corner. Sent him a quick message so he'd know where to find me. The whole place was practically empty back there, like usual. Then came the first weird moment. Before I even saw him, he messaged me asking what my car looked like, which was weird. I mean, you're trying to buy this car, right? Shouldn't you know what it looks like from the listing? I sent back a quick gray SUV back corner type of reply and just waited. A minute later he said, "Cool, I see you. Driving over now." But then I spot this shiny red Ford Focus pulling up next to me. Looked barely a few years old. Definitely not what I expected a guy looking to drop $2,000 on a Trailblazer to show up in. Out hops this dude, maybe early 30s, clean cut, glasses, dark hair. He seemed friendly enough, gave me a handshake, and I walked him around the car while giving the usual rundown. How it drives, what's been replaced, the good and bad. Barely a minute into it, he asked if he could take it for a spin. I said sure, and hopped in the passenger seat while he slid into the driver's side. But here's where my gut started poking me a bit. The guy had been glued to his phone the whole time, even while walking over. Not texting or calling anyone that I could tell, but still, it just felt off, like he was half distracted or waiting on something. Anyway, once we started moving, I asked if he knew the area. He nodded and said yeah, he was familiar. Instead of looping around the Walmart area like most people do, he pulled out and headed toward this quiet stretch that I'd only driven through once or twice. Not sketchy, exactly, but it was one of those back roads with old warehouses, patchy woods, and almost no traffic. Speed limit was like 35, and the place had that kind of forgotten vibe. We rolled along in silence mostly. I tried talking about the car, just casual stuff about the brakes, the AC, the mileage. But Marcus barely reacted. Didn't ask any follow-up questions. Just nodded here and there and kept staring straight ahead. At one point, while we were cruising down that quiet road, Marcus glanced at his phone, like literally while driving. I gave him a quick, "Hey man, maybe don't do that while we're moving." And he just mumbled something like, Yeah, my bad," and shoved it in his pocket. Already not feeling great about this ride, and that didn't help. I tried to make small talk again, asked him how the car felt. "Drives good," he said. That's it. No real feedback. No questions. Just dead air. 5 minutes in, and I was just about to suggest we head back when he started slowing down all of a sudden. Then, totally out of nowhere, he pulls off onto this busted-up side lot that looked like it belonged to some abandoned shipping company or something. You know the kind? Half the pavement gone, potholes deep enough to lose a shoe in, and surrounded by trees like the place had been swallowed by nature. No signage, no lights, nothing. As we pull in, I notice there's already a car parked way in the back. I figured maybe Marcus was just flipping a U-turn or something. But nope. He drives in about halfway, stops the car, turns it off, and straight up removes the key. That's when things started clicking into place, but a little too late. He opens his door and starts climbing out. I'm just sitting there thinking, what the hell is this dude doing? Then, out of nowhere, he shouts, "Get out of the car!" Right as I turn my head, I see 3 guys getting out of that other car in the lot. They're already moving toward us, fast. I'd guess they were maybe in their 40s or 50s, but too far to see clearly. Maybe like 40-50 feet out and closing the gap. And Marcus? He steps right out in front of the Trailblazer and waves me out again, louder this time. That's when my stomach just dropped. I don't know what exactly they had planned, but it wasn't good. Then I remembered. Thank God. I'd tossed the spare key in my hoodie pocket before I left the house. I always brought it to deals in case someone actually bought the car on the spot. At the time, it just felt like a smart habit. Never thought it'd save my butt. Marcus noticed I wasn't moving and started circling around the front of the car, heading toward the passenger door. The other 3 dudes were now maybe 20 feet away and moving faster. I fumbled for the key in my pocket and found the lock button. Click. The lock snapped down just as Marcus reached the door handle. He yanked it, realized it was locked, and I wasted 0 time. I jumped over to the driver's seat, jammed the key in, and cranked the ignition. I saw him digging into his jacket, probably for the key he had. But by then, the engine was alive and rumbling. The second it turned over, I slammed it into drive and floored it. Tires screeched like something out of a low-budget action movie. I saw the 3 guys break into a sprint as Marcus tried to open the door again, but I was already moving. I could hear them yelling behind me as I peeled out. I punched a U-turn right there in the lot while they started booking it toward their car. I didn't wait to see if they were catching up, just got the hell out of there, bouncing over potholes like a maniac until I hit the main road again. Took the first turn I saw, didn't even care where it went. Just wanted off that stretch and away from whatever was about to go down. Checked the mirror, no headlights, no tail. I'd lost them. Made it home in one piece, adrenaline still frying my brain, and immediately called the cops. I told them everything. Where we met, what Marcus looked like, what the other car looked like, All of it. Even mentioned that his Ford Focus was probably still chilling in the Walmart parking lot. Turns out it was. Police found it that same night, completely abandoned. Later, they told me the car was reported stolen a week earlier. Classic. No idea if they ever caught Marcus or his crew. I wasn't expecting a full Law and Order resolution or anything. But I can tell you this. I've never sold anything in person again without a backup plan. And thank God I brought that spare key. Back when I was in university, broke as hell like most students, I was constantly trying to scrape together cash between classes. During summers, I'd usually find some kind of job, and while school was in session, I had a campus gig, but it barely paid enough for gas and late-night Taco Bell runs. Plus, I wasn't exactly a genius, so I had to study a lot just to keep up. That made anything beyond my little work-study job pretty much impossible. But around my third year, I got real desperate for extra money. Like, counting coins for laundry desperate. So one afternoon, I pulled up Craigslist hoping to find something easy and fast. Ideally something that didn't require a resume, or me pretending to be someone I'm not. I clicked into the general labor section, thinking I'd find some yard work or moving help. Stuff I could do without needing any special skills. I was 22 at the time and in decent shape, so physical jobs weren't a big deal. Not even 10 minutes into scrolling, I came across this super simple ad that just read, "Yard cleanup, few hours, $100. That was literally it. No frills, no company name, nothing. It was posted like an hour before I saw it, so I jumped on it and sent a message. Whoever posted it got back to me pretty quickly. We messaged a bit, and they offered me the job. Easy enough. The only weird thing was, they asked me to come by at 9 p.m. on a Friday night for yard work. I remember staring at my screen like, huh? That was definitely a red flag I probably should have paid more attention to, but I didn't want to screw up my chance at some quick money. I figured maybe they worked odd hours or something. I mean, I didn't have class the next day, and I wasn't doing anything else that night besides binge-watching garbage TV. So I said yes. They sent me the address, and on Friday night, I drove out there. It was about a 20-minute ride to a neighborhood I'd never been to before, somewhere on the edge of Spring Hill, kinda out of the way. I didn't know the area, and since it was already dark, I couldn't get a good feel for it. There were barely any street lights, just a couple of sad little lamps scattered around. The house was 2 stories, looked pretty average from what I could see. The front yard was definitely messy, bushes growing wild, leaves everywhere, that kind of thing. I texted the person to let them know I'd arrived, parked my crappy Honda, and got out. I was about 5 minutes early. As I walked up to the door, I noticed the whole house was pitch black. Not a single light on, inside or out. That felt off. I tried to shrug it off. Maybe they were waiting for me in the back or something? I rang the doorbell. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices, nada. Waited about a minute, then knocked. Figured maybe the doorbell didn't work or whatever. So after knocking again, still dead silence, I pulled out my phone just to make sure I didn't somehow screw up the address. Nope. I was at the right spot. Sent another, "Hey, I'm here," text. No reply. At that point, I figured maybe they were in the backyard or garage or something, so I knocked once more. Nothing. And then, I heard something. It was this weird crunching sound, like someone walking through dry leaves. It was coming from the side yard, just off to the right. I turned my head, trying to spot whoever it was. But there was this massive tree partly blocking the view, and honestly, it was way too dark to make anything out clearly. The kind of dark where your brain starts playing tricks on you. I stepped back a bit, hoping to see better, and the sound just stopped, like immediately, which made it way worse. I called out, sort of awkwardly, like, hey? Hello? Still no answer. At this point, I was starting to get that tight gut-level tension. You know when everything's technically normal, but your body just knows something's off? Then the footsteps started again. Same slow, crunchy pace, still out of view. And yeah, I dipped. I didn't even try to be subtle about it. Just turned and walked straight back to my car, trying not to look like I was panicking, but absolutely panicking. Got in, slammed the door, locked it immediately. I sat there for a second, looking out toward the yard, but didn't see anyone. Not a single movement. My phone still showed no texts, no calls. Zilch. At that point, I was like, yeah, okay, screw this. Threw the car into reverse and peeled the hell out of there. I was maybe halfway down the street, quiet residential area, no other cars around, and suddenly I see headlights behind me. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then it clicked. I hadn't seen anyone else parked when I got there, and I didn't hear a car start. So where the hell did this one come from? I slowed a bit and glanced at my rearview mirror. The car was staying right on me. Followed me through the neighborhood, onto the main road, and then, yep, even merged onto the highway with me. That was when I started getting real uneasy. My heart was doing that annoying fast thump, and I kept switching lanes, but the car stuck with me the whole way. Finally, I was getting close to where I lived, like a mile or two out, and the car took a left at a light while I went right. I waited till it was completely out of sight before heading home, and let me tell you, I was checking my mirrors the whole time. I never got a text back, never heard from that Craigslist person again. I still have no clue who was walking around the yard or who was driving that car, but something about the whole thing just didn't sit right. I've told myself maybe it was all just a weird coincidence, but I don't think I really believe that. Needless to say, that was my last Craigslist gig ever. Not worth the $100, man. When I was 32, I finally decided to sell my old electric guitar online. It had been sitting in the corner of my apartment for years, untouched. I was working long shifts at the studio, and the guitar just gathered dust. I listed it on a local marketplace app, nothing fancy. It was an old Fender, beat up but still played smooth, and I figured someone would want it. Within a few hours, a guy named Roger messaged me. He seemed polite, asked a bunch of questions about the pickups, wiring, the usual stuff. Then he asked if he could come by that evening to check it out in person. It was a bit late. He suggested 8:30 p.m., but I figured why not. He sounded reasonable, said he worked until 8, and it was his only chance to come by before the weekend. I cleaned up the living room a bit, wiped the dust off the guitar, propped it on its stand near the couch. I didn't turn on all the lights, just a floor lamp and the hallway light, enough to show the guitar clearly. I also unlatched the front gate and left the porch light on. The neighborhood was always quiet after sunset. I lived in a duplex, the kind with a little fenced front yard, and my neighbors were rarely home in the evenings. I wasn't worried. I had my phone in my hoodie pocket and a bit of optimism in my head. The plan was simple. Show the guitar, answer a few questions, take the cash, close the door. I didn't even take the case out. I assumed he'd bring one if he was serious. At 8:35, headlights pulled up outside. I checked the peephole and saw a guy about my age, tall, carrying nothing, looking around like he was just confirming the address. I opened the door and he gave a small wave. "Roger," he said, but he wasn't alone. Behind him, two other guys got out of the car. One was thinner, with long hair and a denim jacket. The other was heavier, wore a hoodie with the hood up, and kept his hands in the pocket. Roger introduced them casually. "This is Mark and Jay, bandmates." I paused a second, then opened the door wider. "Cool," I said. "Come in." It wasn't how I pictured the deal going, but maybe they wanted a second opinion on the tone or something. The three of them stepped inside, and I closed the door behind them. Roger went straight to the guitar, crouching down to look at the body and knobs. He started asking about the pickups again, whether I'd changed them or left them stock. I answered, watching his hands carefully. Mark, the thin guy, walked around the living room slowly, eyeing the shelves and posters. He glanced down the hallway that led toward the kitchen and bathroom. "Mind if I use the sink?" he asked, pointing vaguely in that direction. "Had some fast food in the car." I hesitated. "Yeah, sure. Kitchen's straight back." He disappeared down the hall. Jay, the guy in the hoodie, stayed by the door. He leaned against the wall near the coat rack and started talking about a gig they played last month in some dive bar downtown. I nodded occasionally, but I was watching his eyes. They weren't really focused on me. They kept darting toward the hallway, like he was checking to see if Mark was coming back. Roger kept his focus on the guitar. He adjusted a couple knobs, ran his hand along the fretboard. "Neck's in good shape," he said. "What gauge strings do you usually use?" 11s, I replied. I told myself they were just being thorough, like any band would be when buying shared gear. Still, I shifted my weight a bit, stepping back to keep the hallway and front door both in my sight. Roger didn't seem nervous or suspicious. Jay, though, wasn't really listening to his own story anymore. He just stood there, quiet now, hands still in his hoodie pocket. A few minutes passed, and the guy who went to wash his hands still didn't come back. Roger was still crouched by the guitar, asking slow, drawn-out questions like he wasn't in any hurry. "Did you ever get the frets stressed? Is this the original wiring?" It felt less like curiosity and more like delay tactics. Jay stood quiet now. One shoulder leaned against the door, body turned just enough to block the exit more than before. He wasn't talking anymore. He didn't have to. I started to hear soft sounds, faint and irregular. Something brushing against fabric. A click. Not from the kitchen, but deeper in. The direction of the bedroom. That was when it hit me. He wasn't washing his hands. He was searching the place. My closet. Drawers. Looking for anything small and expensive. I nodded slowly, still looking at Roger, who kept his eyes down like he didn't notice I'd stopped answering. My heartbeat was loud now. My mouth felt dry, but I kept my voice steady. "Hang on," I said. "I think I left the tuner on the balcony. You probably want to check intonation, right?" Roger didn't even look up. Just nodded. Jay shifted slightly by the door, stepping aside half an inch to let me pass. It was a tiny opening, but enough. I walked toward the sliding balcony door at the back. Didn't rush, didn't speak. Slid it open as quietly as I could and stepped out into the cool air. The lights inside cast my shadow long on the wooden planks. My fingers wrapped around the edge of the railing. No thinking, just moved. I swung one leg over the edge, then the other. Gripped the metal rail and dropped. It was a short fall, maybe 8 feet, but when I landed, my right ankle buckled with a crunch. A sharp crack of pain burst up my leg. I gritted my teeth and hobbled forward, half running, half limping across the patchy lawn behind the unit. I didn't look back until I reached the wooden fence separating my yard from the neighbors. Behind me, the balcony light glowed softly, and I heard the balcony door slide shut. Then came the sharp bang of my back door slamming open. A man's voice, Rogers, or maybe Jay's, called out once, sharp, like he was trying to spot me in the dark. I didn't stop. I threw myself over the low fence, landing harder than I meant to on the neighbor's side. My ankle screamed again, but I pushed forward. The back of their house had a small porch with glass sliding doors. Lights were off, curtains drawn. I pounded my fist against the glass. "Hey, please, help!" I hit harder, using the side of my fist. "Call the police!" The light snapped on inside. For a second, shadows moved behind the curtain. The door clicked. An older man in a robe opened it halfway, stared at me, eyes wide. "They're in my house," I gasped. "3 guys, robbing me." He didn't ask anything, just shut the door and grabbed the phone. I turned back and saw no one in the yard. No voices now, no footsteps. Just the sound of sirens rising in the distance. By the time the patrol car pulled up, the house was quiet. My neighbor kept me seated on his back step with an ice pack on my foot. The cops went in through the front and searched the place room by room. The living room was mostly untouched. Guitar still on the stand. But drawers in the bedroom were pulled open, contents scattered. My wallet was gone from the nightstand. A cheap tablet I used for work meetings was missing. They didn't bother with the TV or speakers. Just small things they could pocket quick. No sign of the 3 guys. The officer said they probably bolted the moment they heard shouting or saw me drop from the balcony. He said it wasn't the first time he'd heard of this kind of setup. 1 distracts, 1 watches, 1 searches. Fast, quiet, low risk. They took my statement, said detectives would follow up. No guarantees, no promises. The next morning, I didn't touch the guitar. I didn't even look at it. The house felt off, like the air had shifted. I changed both locks before noon. Bought a camera off Amazon with same-day delivery. Mounted it above the door by nightfall. Now I hear every creak in the floorboards. Every tap against the window makes me look. I don't invite strangers in anymore. If someone wants to see something I'm selling, we meet in daylight. Public place. Not alone. The detective who called 2 days later said evening viewings were always a gamble. Convenient for them. Dangerous for you. He wasn't wrong. It was supposed to be a simple trade. A bit of extra cash. But cheap convenience turned out to be an expensive bet. Losing a tablet or a wallet stings, yeah. But losing the feeling that your home is safe, that's worse. That stays. Last spring, when I was 30, I decided to sell my 2010 Honda Fit. The car was fine, no major issues, but I needed a bigger trunk for work stuff. I posted it on a few local marketplaces, added clear photos, listed all the service history, and within a day, I got a message from a guy named Marcus. His profile seemed normal. Recent activity, couple of car posts. He asked basic questions, didn't haggle too much, and we agreed to meet in the parking lot of a big supermarket just off the highway. It had cameras, lots of foot traffic, and it was broad daylight. Felt like the safest place for this kind of thing. I got there maybe 20 minutes early. Parked in one of the more open sections, where the light was good. Pulled out a microfiber cloth from the glove box and gave the dashboard a quick wipe. Windex on the windows, got rid of the dust on the vents. Even tucked in the seatbelts neatly. Might have been overkill, but I figured the better it looked, the easier the sale. I kept checking my phone in between, refreshing the messages, but he didn't text anything else. Around 5 minutes after the scheduled time, a black SUV turned into the lot. It was a newer model, tinted windows, clean but not flashy. He parked a couple spaces away and walked over. Mid-30s, maybe a bit older than me. Short beard, neutral expression. He didn't say much, just nodded and started walking around the car. No small talk, no handshake. Just a, "This it?" And then he circled the vehicle like he was checking for scratches. I gave him the key. He popped the hood, then checked the tires. He asked about the mileage and when the last oil change was. I told him it had 143,000 kilometers. I'd done all the servicing at the dealer, and the brakes were replaced last winter. He didn't seem impressed, but he nodded. I told him the price was slightly negotiable, and casually mentioned I'd be willing to accept a small deposit if he wanted time to think. He didn't respond to that part. Then, out of nowhere, he just said, "I think I'm gonna pass," handed me the key, turned around, and walked back to his SUV. No explanation. He didn't look angry or suspicious. Just kind of done. Got in his vehicle and drove out of the lot like nothing happened. I stood there for a few seconds, watching his taillights disappear. I wasn't mad, more like annoyed. Another just-looking guy. I'd met a few before who wasted my time with test drives and questions, only to ghost afterward. I sat back in the car, checked my phone. No new messages. I figured I'd head home. Maybe relist the ad with a small price drop. I pulled out of the lot and turned onto the main road, merging onto the highway. It was early afternoon, light traffic. I queued up a podcast, some true crime episode I'd been meaning to finish, and settled in for the drive. It was a straight route, about 25 minutes to my place. About 5 minutes in, I noticed a black SUV a few car lengths behind me in the left lane. Same shape, same tint. My first thought was that it was just a similar model. Those things are everywhere. But when I switched lanes to exit the highway, the SUV moved over too. I glanced in the rear view. It didn't tailgate or do anything aggressive. Just stayed 2 cars behind. I told myself the road was public. There were only so many exits, and a lot of people took this route toward the suburbs. I changed lanes again, and so did he. Took the same turnoff. Still no obvious signs. No speeding, no flashing lights, no weird lane changes. But the longer it stayed behind, the more I noticed how consistent it was. If I slowed down, it slowed down. If I turned into the right lane, it followed. At the next light, I glanced up again. The SUV had pulled into the turning lane behind me. Still nothing illegal or even really strange. But it was the exact same SUV Marcus had been driving. I wasn't totally sure. Couldn't see the plates. But the way it kept matching every move was starting to bother me. I turned off the podcast and rolled down my window slightly. Needed to focus. The air was warm. I made a right onto a smaller street that cut through a residential area. I knew this route well. Lots of stop signs, narrow corners, and 2 small parks. If he wasn't following, this is where he'd veer off. But he didn't. I went left at the next stop, slower now, pretending to be looking for an address. The SUV made the same left turn. My grip on the wheel tightened, but I still kept telling myself this could be coincidence. Maybe he lived here too. Maybe he was taking a back road detour. But every single turn I made, he mirrored. No hesitation, no lag. Just smooth, deliberate following. By the time I was 2 blocks from my apartment, the SUV was so close I couldn't even see its front grille in my rear view. I braked hard and took a sudden right onto a side street, barely checking for oncoming traffic. The SUV followed without hesitation. I took another sharp left, then zigzagged through a set of narrow residential roads, trying not to panic. I made sure to avoid going anywhere near my actual building. No way I was leading him to where I lived. I kept changing directions, left, then right, then another left, pacing through the back grid of the neighborhood like I was lost. Still, He stayed behind, engine low, but present. That same black SUV, same steady pressure. I didn't want to call anyone yet. I needed to be sure. Then I remembered something. There was usually a patrol car stationed near the park a few blocks over. It wasn't always there, but if I could just get close, maybe that would be enough. I turned toward the park, sped up a little. The SUV revved louder behind me, not closing in, but keeping close. Almost like he was weighing something, deciding how far to take this. I cut across the main road and saw it. Just ahead, tucked along the sidewalk near the park entrance, was the white and blue of a police cruiser. I didn't slow down. I flicked my hazard lights on and made a sharp swerve directly toward it. The moment I pulled up next to the cruiser, the SUV stopped. It didn't screech or turn around. It just came to a controlled halt at the edge of the intersection, engine idling. The officer inside the cruiser looked up from whatever he was doing, maybe writing a ticket or scrolling his tablet. I threw my door open and stepped out, raising my hands to show I wasn't a threat. The SUV stayed still. A beat passed, then another. Without warning, it peeled off, made a fast right turn and disappeared down the opposite street. I pointed after it, tried to shout something, but the engine roar drowned me out. It was gone in seconds. The officer got out and asked what was going on. I told him everything. About the meeting, the SUV, the strange silence, the following, and how I'd tried to shake him. I was still shaking when I finished, one hand gripping the edge of the open door. He nodded slowly, walked back to his car, and checked the dash cam. The angle had caught the SUV for just a second, but it was a blur. No plate, no make-out of the driver, nothing useful. He filed a report, wrote down everything I'd told him. Then he said something that stuck with me. Sometimes these guys tag vehicles at sale meets. They don't need to rob you then. They just wait for you to go home, and then they come back when you're not expecting it. I asked if he thought Marcus was trying to steal the car. The officer shrugged. Could be. Could be he just wanted to see where you lived. If you've got cameras, keep them on, and park somewhere with a lot of eyes. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time a pair of headlights passed by my window, I froze. I kept picturing the SUV waiting just outside, engine off, lights out. Maybe with Marcus inside. Maybe not. I kept checking the locks, the curtains, the lot below. Nothing moved. But I didn't relax, not even a little. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't keeping the car. I drove it straight to the dealership, told them I'd take whatever trade-in offer they had, no haggling. It was a lot less than what I'd listed it for, but I didn't care. I signed the papers and handed over the keys without a second thought. Sometimes, keeping control is worth more than getting a good deal. I don't know if Marcus made a copy of the keys. I don't know if he had plans to come back. I never heard from him again. But I still remember his silence, his eyes, how he didn't even flinch when I offered the deposit. He never wanted to buy that car. He just wanted to mark it. And maybe, later, take it. Last autumn, I was 20 and grabbing any gig I could find. Cash jobs under the table didn't matter. Yard work, moving furniture, even cleaning out sheds if the money was halfway decent. The ad for an overgrown garden on Bayview Road looked solid. All $120 for a full afternoon. Just trim, clear, no hauling needed. Tools provided if necessary. The guy, Mr. Hyde, said he'd be by later to check in, but I could get started anytime after noon. I pulled up just after 12:30. The house looked empty, not ruined, just tired. Flaking paint, crooked shutters, grass swallowing the stone path. Gate was open though, and the address matched, Figured maybe the guy lived out of town and was fixing it up. I parked on the street, unloaded the rake, shears, a small speaker. Nothing fancy. I looked around. No movement, no voices. Windows shut, curtains drawn, except the attic. 3 narrow windows up there with no curtains at all. The backyard was bad. Bushes twisted in on themselves, vines crawling up the gutters, dead leaves knee-deep in some spots. But manageable. I started with the side hedge, cut it down slow, stuffed clippings into a corner, kept my gloves on, thorns everywhere. After about 30 minutes, I settled into a rhythm. The work was rough, but better than sweating over fryers at the diner, and way quieter. I put on some music, low at first, but turned it up once I realized no neighbors seemed to care. No cars, no voices. Just the wind pushing dry leaves around. One of the back corners was especially thick. Old branches rotting in place, plastic trash half buried in ivy. I pulled out a rusted garden chair, a torn-up kid's backpack, and some kind of metal rack. Probably from a grill or something. It smelled like mildew and dust. Around 2, I was dragging another pile of branches when something made me look up. Just a second. My eyes flicked to the attic windows. One of them had a shape behind it. A man. Pale blue baseball cap, standing perfectly still. I blinked. Gone. Empty glass again. I stood there, hands full of twigs, not breathing. It wasn't movement that caught me. It was stillness. Like he'd been staring the whole time. But the sun was hitting the windows at a weird angle. Maybe a reflection? Maybe someone walking by behind me? I turned, checked the whole yard. Nobody. I pulled out my phone, scrolled back to Mr. Hyde's number, and called. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Just checking. You said nobody's home, right?" He paused. "Right. Why?" "Thought I saw someone in the attic. A guy in a hat. Might have been nothing." There was silence then. "I'm calling the police. Stay outside. Don't go in the house. I'm on my way." I laughed nervously. "It's probably just a trick of the light, man." But he'd already hung up. I stayed where I was for a minute. Hands cold, even with gloves on. I stared at the attic again. Nothing. No movement. I turned the music up, bent back down, and kept raking. The patrol arrived 20 minutes later. 2 officers. They checked the house, went inside, came out after about 10 minutes. "Nobody's here," one of them said. "House is empty. No sign of forced entry." I nodded, half apologizing, trying to hide how much I'd been sweating. "Probably lighter shadows," I said. The other officer glanced at the attic window. "Sometimes reflections do weird things," he said. They left soon after, and I stood there, unsure whether to pack up or finish the job. I gave it another 5 minutes, then went back to work. By then, the sun had shifted lower. The garden looked a little better, less wild, but it still had that quiet, forgotten air. Shadows stretched longer across the yard. The breeze turned colder, but not strong enough to be a reason to leave. I moved toward the back, near an old compost pile made from stacked cinder blocks. Vines had wrapped around it, and the smell back there was heavier, like wet earth and something older. I was pulling out a piece of broken fencing when I caught movement again. Between 2 tree trunks near the back fence, same cap, same posture. Not moving, not speaking. Just there. The brim of the hat slightly tilted, like before. As soon as I turned, the figure stepped backward and vanished behind the trunk. I dropped the fence piece, skin tight with goosebumps. I scanned the trees, stepped forward once, then stopped. Didn't see anything else, but I could feel something. not just nerves. My gloves were damp now. I wiped my palms on my jeans and looked back at the house. Still no movement, still no sound. I started walking to the car. I tried not to rush. Didn't want to make it obvious. Just a slow walk. Keep it calm. I passed the tools, left them on the ground. The rake was leaning on the gate. I figured I'd come back for it if everything felt normal again. Then, a sharp crack of leaves to my left. I turned fast. Nothing. But my keys slipped as I grabbed them from my pocket. They hit the pavement and slid right under the front tire. I crouched to grab them, trying to stay calm. And that's when I heard it. Footsteps. Not fast, just steady. Crunching closer. I stood up quick, grabbed the handle, yanked open the door, and slammed it shut behind me. Locked everything. Sat still. Eyes on the rearview mirror. Then he stepped out. Into the open part of the yard, maybe 20 feet away. Same cap, dirty jacket, jeans too big for him. He didn't move toward the car, just looked. Tilted his head. One side, then the other, as if deciding. I stared straight ahead. Didn't move. Didn't blink. He took one small step forward. I hit the horn, long and loud. He turned calmly and walked back into the trees. Not running, just disappearing into the brush like he belonged there. I didn't wait. I reversed fast, keys still shaking in my hands. Turned around in the street and drove until I hit the first gas station with people. I sat there for half an hour before calling Mr. Hyde. He apologized, said he'd still pay me. I didn't care about the money. I told him not to call again for more work. The next day, I got a message from him. Said the police found some footprints in the back part of the garden, behind the compost pile. No match in any database. Probably just a squatter, he said. Happens sometimes. Empty houses attract the wrong people. Maybe. But squatter or not, that guy was watching me. The whole time. Like he already knew the place and just didn't expect company. I still took yard gigs after that, but I started checking every detail. Address, owner name, neighbor reviews if I could find them. No more random houses, no matter how good the offer. Some overgrowth can be cut back with shears. But once you feel that exposed, that hunted, no rake or gloves can help you with that. Two months ago, I was broke and trying to furnish my first rental. I spent hours on Facebook Marketplace and local forums, looking for anything free. That's when I saw the listing. Couch, free to take, please hurry. The post was simple, but what stood out was the part that said, doors will be open. That made me hesitate. Still, the pictures looked decent. The couch was a beige 3-seater. No obvious stains, no visible rips. The owner's name was Claire. She said she was moving and couldn't wait around. First come, first served. I borrowed my friend's old minivan that same evening. The gas tank was nearly empty, and the brakes were squeaky, but it did the job. The address Claire gave was on the edge of town, in one of those neighborhoods that felt more like the country than the suburbs. Mostly single-story homes, long yards, faded mailboxes. I pulled up just before dusk. The sky was gray, and everything looked sort of washed out. The house was set back from the road, partly hidden by 2 large bushes and an overgrown lawn. The grass must have been knee-high in some spots. There were weeds poking through the cracks in the driveway. One of the garage doors hung crooked. The windows looked cloudy, like no one had cleaned them in years. But I figured, if Claire was moving, maybe she just didn't care about upkeep anymore. The porch light wasn't on, and there was no car in the driveway. I parked on the street and grabbed the flat dolly I brought to wheel the couch out. I walked up the cracked front steps and gave the door a light push. It opened right away. Inside, the air felt thick and stale. I figured the house hadn't been aired out in a while. Maybe she was already gone. The listing said to go ahead, so I did. I called out a quiet, "Hello?" but didn't hear anything back. The floor creaked under my feet as I stepped inside. There was a hallway that opened into a small living room. The walls were pale yellow, but the paint was peeling in places, and the corners had what looked like water damage. The whole place smelled like damp plaster and dust. The curtains were shut, but some daylight still managed to slip through, just enough to make out the shapes of the furniture. The couch was right where the post said it would be, in the middle of the living room, facing a blank wall. No rug, no TV, nothing else in the room except a toppled lamp and a dented metal side table. The couch didn't look bad, though. The cushions were firm, and the fabric didn't seem torn. It had that old upholstery smell, but nothing too bad. Honestly, I was surprised. I thought it'd be a mess. I bent down to test the weight and gave the base a little lift. It was lighter than I expected. I slid the dolly underneath and started tipping it back. That's when I heard it. A voice. A man's voice, low and rough, from somewhere above me. Just one word. "Claire?" I froze. My hands were still on the arm of the couch, halfway through tilting it. I didn't move for a few seconds. My first thought was maybe Claire's husband or boyfriend was still here. Maybe he didn't know she posted the ad. But she didn't mention anyone else. I looked up at the staircase in the hallway. It turned halfway up, so I couldn't see the top landing, but I could see a pair of boots on the second step from the top. Work boots. Heavy. Dark. The rest of him was hidden by the wall. He wasn't moving. He was just standing there. I stayed quiet. My heart was pounding, but I told myself maybe he was just helping her move. Maybe he was checking to see if someone came to pick the couch up. That made sense, right? It had to. I stood there for another few seconds, still holding the couch. The boots didn't move. The voice came again, softer this time. "Claire?" It didn't sound angry, just confused, like someone expecting an answer they'd rehearsed. I backed away from the couch, let the dolly rest between me and the hallway like a shield. The rubber wheels squeaked against the floor, louder than they should have been. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. Battery icon flashed red, 1%. The vibration rattled in my chest like a warning. No signal. I stared at the boots. No movement. No shift in weight. Just silence after the word. The house was too quiet. I looked toward the door. That hallway, the one I'd walked in without thinking twice, now stretched like a tunnel. Longer than it was. Or maybe it was the feeling crawling up my back. I counted in my head. Maybe 15 steps if I moved steady. I didn't want to run. Running made noise. I turned slowly, keeping the dolly between us, and started walking. Calm. One step, then another. My feet felt heavy, like they were waiting for a reason to stop. I didn't give them one. As soon as I hit the porch, I ran. I dropped the dolly halfway through the doorway. The couch rocked and fell off with a crash, but I didn't look back. The wooden steps thudded under me, each one cracking louder than the last. I grabbed the van's handle, yanked it open, and threw myself in. I didn't buckle my seatbelt, just slammed it in drive and hit the gas. The rearview mirror caught a sliver of movement. Inside the house, behind the curtain, something shifted. The fabric twitched, then pulled tighter like fingers were holding it back. A shape leaned close to the window. Too fast to see a face, just the outline of a head and shoulders and arms that didn't move quite right, like someone watching without wanting to be seen. I drove straight back to campus. Didn't stop. Not for gas, not for food. Parked in the student lot and sat there with the engine running until my phone died completely. Then I went inside and reported it. Campus security directed me to the local police. They asked for the address. I gave it. They checked. The house was supposed to be vacant. No one had lived there in over 6 months. Foreclosure process, utilities shut off. They sent someone to check it out. The number Claire posted? No longer in service. Account deleted right after the listing went up. A few days later, one of the detectives followed up. They'd gone through the place. No furniture except the couch. Most of the rooms were empty. But in the attic, they found sleeping bags. 2 of them. Tightly rolled, hidden behind a stack of broken drywall. There were some canned foods, a flashlight, and a folding knife. No fingerprints, no IDs. Just signs that someone, or maybe 2 people, had been living up there. Quietly, carefully. I bought a couch from a charity shop the next week. $50. Ugly floral print, but clean. Safe. Comes with a receipt and a friendly cashier who helps load it into your car. That's worth the money. The detective told me something I haven't forgotten. Empty houses attract quiet criminals, he said. They don't need to break in. They just wait. Especially if people are careless with doors and silence. Sometimes I think about those boots. How still they were. Like the person in them had practice. Like they'd stood there before. Listening. I wonder how many other people they scared. Or worse. Free furniture isn't worth the risk. If the door's already open, it's not open just for you. Last semester, my roommate Mari and I finally decided to get rid of the old couch. It had been taking up too much space in our small shared apartment. The cushions sagged, one leg was a little wobbly, and it smelled faintly of takeout from 2 years ago. We listed it online with "free if you can pick it up" in bold. Within 20 minutes, some guy named Doug messaged and said he could come by that day. He showed up around 2 p.m., exactly when he said he would. Tall, maybe mid-30s, brown work jacket, and the kind of polite you don't expect anymore. He backed a dusty gray SUV up to the curb, and we helped him load the couch in. 10 minutes, tops. He thanked us, made a joke about giving the couch a new life, and then drove off. No weirdness, no awkwardness. Honestly, we were just glad to see the thing go. The room felt noticeably bigger without it. Cleaner. That evening, I was vacuuming under the window, where crumbs and dust had settled behind the couch for what must have been months. Mari had gone to the store, and I was half listening to a podcast. I remember thinking how nice the room looked now. There was more light from the window. You could walk freely from the kitchen to the balcony door. We even joked earlier that maybe we were becoming real adults for finally decluttering. I wiped down the coffee table, cleared some old magazines, and lit a cheap candle. The place looked fine. I even texted a picture to my sister showing off how different it felt. Around 7:30, Mari got back with groceries. We made pasta and watched some dumb show, not thinking about the couch or Doug at all. At 9:02 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a message from Doug. "Hey, sorry to bother. Any chance you saw a pair of black wristwatches near the couch? Might have dropped one moving stuff." I read it aloud to Mari. We looked at each other, unsure. Neither of us had seen anything, but it didn't seem crazy. He had knelt behind the couch at one point when we lifted it. Maybe something fell out of his jacket or pocket. We started looking around, more out of courtesy than expectation. Nothing on the windowsill, nothing under the radiator. I got on my hands and knees and checked behind the little side table we'd shoved up against the far wall. There, wedged almost perfectly against the baseboard, Something caught the light when I moved the table slightly. It was a watch. A sleek black chronograph, face down, the strap curled like someone had rolled it into the corner. Not dusty, no scratches. It looked like it had just been placed there. I turned to Mari. She was standing in the middle of the room, frowning. "Was that there when we moved the couch?" she asked. I shook my head. I didn't see it. It was strange. The way it was tucked back there, it didn't look like it had fallen. It looked intentional, like it had been slid back into place. I turned it over. The hands were ticking. A small logo I didn't recognize was etched on the back. No dirt. No lint. Like new. Mari crouched next to me. We stared at it for a second. It wasn't a cheap watch. Not flashy, but expensive in that quiet way. Maybe he really had dropped it, but the position felt off. I glanced at the baseboard. It had a scuff mark right where the watch had been, like something hard had scraped the paint. We didn't say much. I stood up and walked to the kitchen, got a paper towel, and wrapped the watch loosely. Mari was still by the table when I came back. "I'll text him," I said. She nodded, still watching the empty corner. Her hand rested on the table, fingers drumming softly. I typed out, "Hey Doug, found a black watch behind the side table. Looks like it slid under. You want to come grab it tomorrow?" He replied within a minute. "Thanks so much. That's the one. Can I stop by tonight?" Doug replied almost instantly. "Can I grab it in just a sec?" he wrote. I glanced at Mari. "He says he wants to pick it up right now." She frowned. "It's late. Just tell him to come tomorrow." I texted back, "It's getting late. Can we do it tomorrow?" He didn't reply for 2 minutes. Then the phone lit up again. "Would really appreciate if I could grab it tonight. I'm close by." Mari looked out the window, her eyes narrowing. We lived on the ground floor, our small lawn facing the street, with only a low iron fence between the sidewalk and our front window. The motion light flicked on. Something had moved out there. Mari whispered, "Someone's on the lawn." I turned off the room light, and we both stayed low. Through the slats of the blind, I could just barely make out a figure near the side path. He wasn't standing directly in front of the door, just off to the side, where the light didn't reach fully. Then my phone buzzed again. "I'm at the door." No knock, just that message. We didn't speak. I grabbed the watch, unwrapped it, and looked at the window. It opened outward, a little crank-operated one, with a stiff lock. "Put it there," Mari whispered, pointing to the inner edge of the windowsill. I opened it just a crack, 1 centimeter, maybe 2. The cold air came in sharp and sudden. We waited. A pale hand slipped into the gap. Thin fingers. No gloves. It took the watch gently and withdrew. No words. No noise. The window still open a crack. We froze in place, listening. We waited for footsteps, for movement, but nothing. Then, soft as cloth brushing glass, something leaned against the window. His face was right there, almost pressed to the pane. A murky silhouette. Only the streetlight caught part of his jaw. His lips moved, but we didn't hear anything until we opened the window slightly more, just to check if he had left. "Thanks," he murmured. Then louder, slower. "Really appreciate it. It's rare to meet kind people these days." His breath fogged the glass. Mari slammed the window shut, twisting the lock hard. I stepped back. The hallway light behind us was the only one on now. We hadn't turned the porch light on. The shadow outside didn't move for a few seconds. Then, slow and deliberate, it backed away. We stayed near the window, not daring to breathe too loud. A minute later, we heard something. The outer door, the one at the end of the short corridor outside our apartment, rattled. Just once. Then again, harder. Like someone testing it, not breaking it yet. Mari stepped back and took her phone out, fingers trembling as she dialed 911. I grabbed the heaviest thing in reach, a cast iron skillet from the drying rack. We moved together to the inner door. He hadn't reached it yet. Doug wasn't trying to leave. He was walking slow circles around the side of the building. We could see him through gaps in the blinds, pretending to talk on the phone. His hand held something, but it wasn't lit up. No screen glow. He kept pausing to glance at the windows, at ours, then moved again. Mari gave the dispatcher our address and a quick summary. He came for a watch. He didn't leave. He's walking around. No, he's not breaking in yet. Just waiting. She hung up. We waited by the window, eyes fixed on the street. It felt like forever, but maybe it was 5 minutes, maybe less. Then the distant wail of sirens. Doug looked up once, turned toward the sidewalk, and walked quickly down the street. He didn't run, just vanished. The cop cars came and swept the area. A detective showed up 20 minutes later. Took our statements, looked around, and said he'd run Doug's number through their system. He told us something that stuck. We've had a few cases like this. Guy uses furniture ads as a pretext. He shows up polite during the day, gets a look inside, then comes back late, tries the door. Sometimes it's just to steal, sometimes worse. Mari asked, "You know his real name?" The detective nodded slightly. Doug's not his real name. He's shown up under a few different ones. Minor thefts, trespassing, no charges that stuck, but we're watching him now. We changed our locks the next day. Ordered a camera for the porch, 2 for the windows. Motion detectors went on all entries. Now, every time I get a phone notification after midnight, my heart jumps. Doesn't matter if it's just a possum or a tree shadow. It's always the same tension. We still give things away, but only at public drop-off points. No one comes inside anymore. Generosity is fine in daylight, in crowded places. But at home, where you sleep, where it's supposed to be safe, what you give away should never give someone a reason to come back. The couch is gone, but the feeling it left behind still lives with us. Two weeks before winter break, I decided to sell my old game console. It was one of those bulky, older models, nothing special, but still working and boxed up with all the cables and an extra controller. I posted it on a couple of local marketplaces, and a guy named Ray replied later that same day. He asked if I could meet that evening at the Spring Creek Plaza parking lot. I liked the location. Open, well lit, and always busy. There were security cameras, and plenty of people coming in and out of the stores. It felt safe enough, especially for a simple exchange like this. We picked the time, 5:30 p.m., and I got there early to make sure I found a good spot. I parked near the main entrance, facing the glass doors of the big grocery store. That way there was a constant stream of people walking by, and the overhead lights from the storefront lit up the car pretty well. The box with the console was on the passenger seat, cables neatly tied with rubber bands. The controller had a small crack on the side, but everything was working fine. I'd already sent Ray pictures, and he said he was good with the price and the condition. I waited about 5 minutes before I saw a red pickup truck pull in. It was older, with mismatched doors, one red, one black, and the front grille was held in with zip ties. Ray jumped out almost before the truck stopped moving. He looked younger than I expected, maybe early 20s, buzzed hair, jeans, and a hoodie. He walked up quick with this wide grin like we were old friends. He didn't say much, just gave a nod and gestured toward the box. I rolled down the passenger window halfway and let him check the contents from outside. He lifted the lid, looked over the items, even plugged the controller into the console briefly, like he was double-checking it fit. Then he straightened up and said, "Looks good. I'll get you the money tomorrow. Cool?" I didn't even answer at first. I just reached across and pulled the box back to my side. He didn't touch it, but stood there with his hands still half extended like he expected me to change my mind. "No, man. It's payment first," I said. His smile vanished right away. Not in an angry way, but like a switch got flipped. His face just went blank. He stepped back without a word, turned, and got back in the pickup. A second later, he was reversing fast, tires squealing a little as he whipped around and took off through the lot, toward the side exit. I sat there for a second, double-checked the doors were locked, and thought that was it. Weird interaction. Maybe he was just broke or hoping to scam me. I figured I'd post the listing again when I got home. I started the car, adjusted my mirrors, and pulled out of the spot. As I was driving toward the lot exit closest to the gas station, I caught a glimpse in the rear view. Same red pickup. I couldn't be sure it was his at first. It was a big lot, lots of trucks, but the mismatched doors were a dead giveaway. I made a slow left, like I was heading for the light. He turned too. Same distance, maybe 2 car lengths behind. I didn't panic. Not yet. I just watched him. I made a lane change, not suddenly, just enough to see if he followed. He did. Every small adjustment I made, turn signal, brake tap, slow acceleration, he matched. I tightened my grip on the wheel and clicked my seatbelt again, making sure it was secure. I turned right into the strip mall road loop instead of going to the light. The kind of circular drive that connects all the smaller stores and leads back to the grocery entrance. He followed, still keeping the same distance, still not speeding or doing anything obviously threatening, just mirroring everything I did. At the next corner, I made a full loop around the pharmacy side, came back toward the grocery entrance. I checked again. He was still there. No headlights flashing, no honking, just smooth trailing. I looked down for a second to unlock my phone, hand hovering over the emergency dial. Thought about calling 911, but I hadn't done anything yet. He hadn't done anything yet. I kept telling myself maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe he was trying to leave and just happened to be going the same way. Still, I stayed in the loop, making another wide circle. And again, he followed. He pulled up close behind me and started honking. Not just a short tap, but long, drawn-out blasts that echoed off the buildings. I didn't look back. I kept my eyes forward, looking for somewhere, anywhere, that felt safer than this empty loop. Then I remembered the sheriff's substation. It was about a mile down, past the overpass, near a high school. I took a sharp turn onto the main road and floored it. The speed limit was 35, but I pushed past 50 without hesitation. My tires gripped hard as I merged, and in the mirror, the red pickup kept up, engine roaring louder now, like he was trying to push his way into my lane. He drifted left and then jerked back, staying on me. There were no other cars nearby, just us on a dimly lit stretch. I could see the sheriff's building sign up ahead, a low concrete place with a flagpole and 2 cruisers usually parked out front. I swerved into the turning lane, tires screeching slightly as I cut across the divider. His truck followed, overshooting the curve slightly. I saw his tires skid, front end dipping with the sudden turn. I flew into the small parking lot, heading straight for the cruiser parked nearest the entrance. I didn't even wait for the engine to stop. I threw it in park, grabbed my phone and keys, and jumped out. I didn't slam the door or look back. I just ran toward the patrol car. Behind me, I heard brakes squeal hard. When I turned for a split second, the pickup was just sitting at the lot entrance. His headlights lit up the whole drive, but the truck didn't move closer. Then, without warning, it peeled away in the opposite direction, tires screeching as it disappeared into the night. A deputy opened the station door before I reached it. I barely got the words out, all chopped and jumbled. I kept pointing toward the road, breath catching, trying to explain. Another officer came out, took down my plate and Ray's name, and brought me inside. They let me sit while they checked nearby traffic cams. One of the parking lot cameras had caught the plate. Clearly enough, they said. But when they ran it, the plate came back to a totally different vehicle. Not a red pickup, but a white sedan registered in another county. The officer told me I did the right thing. Getting to law enforcement presence fast, not engaging, not going home. He said people pull this kind of thing sometimes. Follow, intimidate, maybe wait for you to stop somewhere quiet. Maybe they want the item. Maybe something worse. Either way, I was lucky it ended here. I ended up selling the console through a resale app 2 days later. Took a hit on the price. Lost $20 because I accepted the first buyer who offered cash up front. Didn't care. Ray's account got flagged and blocked when I reported him. The listing showed no buyer history, no seller history. Probably fake. Burner. A few days after, the deputy called back. Said the license plate had been reported stolen the week before. Probably switched it out just for that night. No way to trace the truck itself unless it showed up again. I asked what they could do. He said they filed the report, kept the footage, and passed it to another department. But unless the truck got caught doing something else, there wasn't much to follow up on. Public places feel safe until they don't. Even a crowded parking lot clears out fast when things start going wrong. Now, I never hand anything over without payment. No exceptions. I keep my phone ready, my car running, and if it feels off, I leave. No deals worth chasing through the streets. Real trouble doesn't show up with a mask or a gun. Sometimes it just pulls up in a red pickup and smiles too wide. And the scariest part? The real story starts after you turn the console off. Last year, I needed new headshots for work. My old ones were from before COVID and looked nothing like me anymore. I wasn't looking to spend much, just something clean for LinkedIn. I found this listing on a classified site. Simple portfolio, decent lighting, low price. The guy's name was Yakov. His page said he had 10 years of experience and his studio was just outside the city center. I messaged him. He replied fast, polite tone, and I booked a slot for Saturday. It was a weird building. Looked like one of those converted office complexes from the late 80s, with peeling beige walls and numbers falling off the doors. There was a flickering overhead light in the hallway, and the elevator was out of service. I took the stairs up to the 3rd floor. Yakov met me in the hallway with a firm handshake, almost too firm. He was in his late 40s, short cropped hair, tan jacket over a gray hoodie. Nothing weird, but something about his eyes made me avoid looking too long. The studio was at the end of the corridor, a metal door with chipped paint. Inside, it was a single room with no windows. There was a dark gray backdrop pinned to one wall, one softbox light on a tripod, a small table with a mirror, and a clothing rack with a few wrinkled shirts. It felt like it used to be someone's desk space. I changed into the shirt I brought, a plain white button-up, and stood in front of the backdrop while Yakov adjusted the lighting. The first shots were fine. He had a basic DSLR, but he moved confidently, knew how to make minor adjustments. Chin down a bit, relax your shoulders. Normal stuff. He moved slowly around me, occasionally stopping to check shots on the camera screen. Every few minutes he'd nod and say, "Good. Very professional." I started to relax. About 10 minutes in, he asked if I was open to something a bit bolder. I asked what he meant. He said something about how headshots are evolving, that people in media, even in corporate, want to see a person's full range. I didn't fully get it, but I nodded. He asked if I could unbutton the top 2 buttons, said it would help show confidence and give a more fitness vibe. I hesitated. I wasn't exactly gym cut. But I figured, why not? Just the top 2. I unbuttoned them. He walked closer. Close enough that I caught the scent of his aftershave. Sharp, artificial. He stood in front of the door now, between me and the way out. He told me not to worry, that many of his clients do shots both for professional and personal use. He adjusted the softbox, dimming it slightly. The room felt a little darker. He held the camera to his eye again, took a few shots, then lowered it. Actually, he said, let's try one more level of openness. Just take the shirt off. Trust me, clients love the natural look. I stayed still. My ears were ringing. I made a half joke, trying to diffuse it. Well, abs aren't quite ready for that. I tried to smile. He didn't laugh. He stepped forward again, holding the camera low. That's fine, he said. It's not about abs, it's about honesty. I said no, clear and firm. His smile dropped instantly. No more friendly posture or coaching voice. He straightened up and said, "You know it's a non-refundable session, right?" I shrugged and said I was fine losing the money. I just wanted to go. His tone flattened. That's not how this works. He stepped sideways, putting himself directly between me and my backpack that I'd left near the table when I changed shirts. My phone and wallet were inside. I kept my eyes on him and asked for the memory card with the photos. He shook his head. I'll process them later. Clean them up, send you the finals. His voice was too calm, rehearsed. The air in the room felt thick, like it wasn't moving. No windows, one door, and him standing in front of it. I told myself I was done talking. Just get out. If I had to lose the photos, fine. But I wasn't walking out without my bag. I took a step to the side, like I was checking something on the wall, then another step, closing the gap between us slowly. I raised my voice, not shouting, but sharp. I said I wanted the SD card now. He paused, his eyes flicked to the hallway through the small window in the door. No one was there. He reached toward the camera on the tripod, slowly, probably thinking he could just pull the card and pocket it. But I'd already done it. A minute earlier, while he was messing with the lights and giving that speech about honesty, I'd yanked the card out and slipped it into my jeans pocket. He realized something was off when I didn't react. He took one step toward me. I looked straight at him. No bluff, no joke. Just stared. He froze. For a second, it was silent. Then he took a step back, not big, but enough to clear the way to my bag. I reached down, grabbed it, and slung it over my shoulder. I didn't turn my back to him. I kept walking backward until I reached the door. Hand on the knob, eyes still on him. I stepped out into the hallway and shut the door behind me. I didn't hear him follow. I didn't wait. I walked fast, down the stairs 2 at a time, back out into the parking lot. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone. I called the police from the sidewalk just outside the building. That night, I checked. The listing was gone. No trace, no name, no profile, no sample shots. Like it was never there. I plugged the SD card into my laptop and checked. All the photos were there. The early shots were decent. Nothing compromising. I had them all. Dignity intact. But it was close. I told a few friends about it. Everyone said the same thing. Cheap doesn't mean smart. The next week, I paid more for a session at a legit studio. Clean place, glass doors, front desk. I got what I needed. The photographer handed me the files immediately. No issues. It cost double. It was worth every cent. What I learned is this. When someone controls the door, the lights, and the files, the price goes up in ways you don't expect. I'm telling this so maybe someone else thinks twice. Trust your instinct, not the discount. No photo is worth standing in a room with one way out and no light. Two summers ago, my old farm cart finally gave up. The axle cracked when I was hauling fencing supplies. I patched it up for a bit, but it was clearly time to get a replacement. I started checking listings in the area, hoping to find something used that wouldn't break the bank. After a few days of nothing promising, I came across an ad posted by someone just 30 minutes out of town. A used buggy, diesel-powered, good suspension, and the price was almost too good to believe. No phone number, just a location pin and the name Jerry. The photos looked decent. I figured I'd go check it out after morning chores. I drove out around noon. Weather was dry, heat starting to settle in. GPS took me through the usual highway, then onto a gravel road flanked by old pines, the kind of place where cell signal comes and goes. I followed the directions until I reached a tall wire gate with a rusted "No Trespassing" sign dangling from one corner. A man was standing there, leaning on the fence post. Thin, wiry, with a long gray beard and a camo cap. He waved when he saw my pickup. I rolled the window down and said, "Looking for Jerry?" He just nodded and said, "That's me." I asked if the buggy was close by. He motioned with his thumb toward the woods behind the fence and said, "It's back through the tree line. You can't drive all the way in, but I can take you." He pointed at a beat-up side-by-side buggy parked just inside the gate. I looked at the path. It wasn't wide enough for my truck. I hesitated a second, then killed the engine, locked up, and climbed into his buggy. The seat was torn, foam sticking out, and the floorboards were scattered with old bolts and tools. As soon as we started moving, the ride got rough. The trail was narrow, full of dips and pine roots. Branches slapped against the roll cage as we weaved through. I glanced at my phone. 1 bar, then none. Jerry didn't talk much. He kept both hands on the wheel, squinting into the woods like he'd done this trip 1,000 times. I asked how far in we had to go. He just said, "Not long." The motor whined, and we bounced over a patch of gravel. The smell of oil and pine sap mixed in the air. About 10 minutes passed. It was still just trees on all sides. No buildings, no machinery, no clearing. I looked around, trying to get my bearings, but every direction looked the same. Just more trees, thick and close. I tried to joke, "Hope you're not lost out here," but Jerry didn't laugh. Didn't even look at me. My phone finally gave up entirely. No service. I put it back in my pocket and tried to remember which way we'd come, but we'd taken so many turns, it all blurred together. The trail started sloping down, and we passed over a narrow wooden bridge. No rails, just planks barely wide enough for the buggy. The boards creaked loud under our weight. I leaned slightly, looking down. Maybe 6 or 7 feet of drop into a dry gully full of dead branches and trash. Once we got across, I asked, "Why so far out? Not many people dragging tractors way back here." He gave a crooked half smile, eyes still forward. "Out here you don't gotta deal with licensing. Nobody checks what's yours." His voice was quiet but flat, like it was something he'd said before. We kept driving. The trees didn't thin. The buggy made a sharp left around a boulder, and for a second I thought I saw the end of the trail up ahead, but it turned out to be another bend. I wiped my hands on my jeans. It wasn't even hot, but I was sweating. The buggy finally rolled to a stop in front of a pair of rusted metal gates. No signs, no driveway, no shed. Just thick trees pressing in from all sides. The ground was uneven and covered in dry pine needles. The air was dead quiet. Jerry didn't get out. He just stared straight ahead like he was waiting for something. His hands stayed on the wheel, but his posture had changed. More tense, like he was listening. I stayed seated, glancing at the gates, then back at the woods behind us. There was no sound of birds, just the low ticking of the engine cooling. Then Jerry turned to me and said, "Trail's too rough from here. We walk." He pointed to a thin path barely visible between the trees. No tire tracks, no footprints. I felt something drop in my gut. Nothing made sense about this. The machine was supposed to be here, maybe in a shed or clearing. This looked like a hunting trail. I smiled and said, "All right, just a sec. Let me fix my shoelace." I bent down slowly, heart pounding. My hands hovered over my boot, but I didn't touch the lace. I looked ahead once more. He hadn't moved. His head was turned away now, squinting down the path. Then I bolted. I launched off the seat and sprinted toward the woods, not the trail, not the gates, just toward where I remembered seeing a stream cross earlier. Branches whipped at my arms and face. The forest floor was uneven, full of roots and rocks. I didn't look back. I ducked low and kept moving, pushing through brush and saplings, trying to stay hidden from the trail behind me. My boot caught once. I stumbled, but kept going. I heard him yelling, "Hey!" Then quieter, "Wait! Come on!" Then louder again, angry, shouting something I couldn't understand. My shoulder caught a branch hard, but I didn't stop. I just kept pushing downhill, toward where the land dipped. I caught a glimpse of glinting water through the brush and angled toward it. I followed the edge of the creek, half running, half stumbling. His voice faded behind me but didn't stop. He kept calling, sometimes sharp, sometimes almost pleading. I stayed near the water, hoping the sound might cover my movement, hoping he couldn't track me that way. Eventually, after what felt like 20 minutes, I saw a break in the trees, something straight and level. I pushed through the undergrowth and landed hard on gravel. It was a service road, probably for logging trucks or maintenance. Rough, but wide enough for a vehicle. I stood there, panting, trying to stay upright. Then I pulled out my phone. 1 bar, then 2. The screen flickered. Emergency calls only. I dialed 911. The operator picked up, and I gave my name, rough coordinates, described everything I could remember. His buggy, the gate, the bridge. I told them I was walking east, following the road. They told me to keep moving and that a unit was on the way. I walked another 15 minutes before I saw flashing lights through the trees. 2 deputies met me on the roadside. One took notes while the other gave me water. I told them about the ride, the fake listing, the gate in the woods. I showed them the pin from the ad and described everything I could. They didn't waste time. We loaded up and drove back the direction I'd come from. They found the gate, right where I said it would be. But now, it had a fresh chain and a new padlock. Not the same rusty setup from before. There were no buggy tracks, no footprints, and no sign anyone had been there. We drove around a while looking for any other way in, but everything was overgrown or fenced off. The sun was setting. One of the deputies said they'd send someone back in daylight, maybe with dogs, but they didn't sound hopeful. My shoulder ached from the fall, and the scratches on my face burned in the heat. I never went back. To this day, that shoulder still gives me pain, especially when the weather changes. I ended up buying a utility cart from a proper dealer. Cost a hell of a lot more, but it was worth it. Now every single vehicle on my land has a GPS tag, even the old quad bike. When I filed the full report, the officer told me they'd seen cases like this before. Sometimes it's robbery. Sometimes they take your truck when you leave it behind. Other times it's worse. They said the deep woods are perfect for this kind of setup. No cameras, no neighbors, no way to scream loud enough for help. He said, "Deals that far from the road hide more than bargains." Now, when I see a listing that looks too good to be true, I scroll past. I don't drive into the forest unless I know exactly where I'm going, who's waiting, and who knows where I am. I still remember how quiet it got when the engine stopped, how still the trees were. I won't be caught out like that again. I pay extra for gas now, not for someone else's trip. Three Fridays ago, I was looking for a budget TV. Mine had finally died after years of freezing screens and half-dead pixels. I didn't want anything fancy, just something that worked. A guy named Sam posted a 42-inch model on a local classifieds app. The price was suspiciously low, barely $100, but he said it was used, a few scuffs, nothing wrong with the screen. His profile looked okay, a few reviews, nothing sketchy. I messaged him, and he replied within a minute. Said I could come by around 6:30. Gave me an address in a quiet part of town, about 20 minutes out. It was already dim when I pulled up. The house was old but not falling apart. 2-story, faded white siding, small porch with chipped paint. One of those places that could be nice if someone cared for it. A single porch light was on, flickering a little. No cars in the driveway. I texted Sam that I'd arrived. He replied, "Cool. Be there in 10. You can wait on porch." So I did. The porch creaked under my steps. I stood next to a dusty flower pot and tried not to look too awkward just loitering. I glanced through the living room window. Lights were on. Inside, a man walked slowly from one end of the room to the other. Balding, maybe late 40s, wearing a beige sweater. I figured it was a roommate or maybe the owner. Seemed normal enough. But he didn't sit. Didn't seem to be doing anything. Just pacing. I stood there a while. 5 minutes, then 10. I checked the time again. Sam hadn't messaged. I sent another. Still good? No reply. The guy inside the house walked past the window again. Still that same pace, not hurried, not relaxed. Back and forth. I thought maybe he was on the phone or waiting for someone too, but I didn't see him holding anything. 15 minutes passed. The street was quiet. A few other houses spaced far apart, some with lights on, most dark. No foot traffic. I could hear distant traffic, maybe a highway somewhere far off, but otherwise it was dead quiet. The temperature dropped slightly as the light faded more. I folded my arms, kept looking down the driveway, waiting for headlights. Then I saw movement near the side of the house. The yard was lined with tall, untrimmed spruce trees. From between them, the same man from the living room stepped out. Same sweater, same build. Only now he wasn't pacing. He was walking directly toward the porch. Toward me. I didn't move at first. I thought he maybe came out to say something. Maybe he knew I was waiting for Sam and just wanted to check in. I said, "Hey, you live here?" He didn't answer. He kept walking. Not fast, but without hesitation. His face was blank, eyes wide but not alert. Just empty. No expression. His right hand stayed deep in his pocket. Something felt off. His silence. The way he walked. Not casual, not cautious. Straight. Steady. Like he already decided what he was doing. I shifted a step back. Just one. Instinctively. Still, he came. I asked again, "Do you know Sam?" No answer. Just the sound of his shoes crunching gravel now. maybe 20 feet away. I backed off the porch. My car was parked just to the right, not far. I started moving toward it, not running, just getting closer to something solid. The guy didn't break stride. When I looked back, he had picked up speed. Still no expression. But now his legs moved faster, arms tighter to his sides. The hand in his pocket didn't budge. I walked faster. Reached my car. My hand went straight for the driver's side handle. I yanked it just as he stepped up onto the porch behind me. I slammed the door shut just as his hand grabbed the handle. He yanked it hard, but it was locked. Then he punched the driver's side window, hard enough to make the whole door shake. I didn't wait to see what was next. I threw the car in reverse, tires screeched, and I backed out so fast I nearly clipped the mailbox. He took a few steps after the car, then stopped. Just stood there, staring as I floored it down the street. I didn't go straight home. I drove a few blocks, parked behind a gas station, and sat there breathing hard, trying to process what just happened. I pulled out my phone and called the police. They told me to meet an officer nearby, which I did. We drove back to the house together. The place was dark by then. The porch light was off. No one answered the door. The officer knocked for a while, then tried the door. It was unlocked. He went in, told me to stay in the car. He came out 5 minutes later and said the place was empty. No furniture, no TV, just a couple dusty chairs and old curtains. The walls were scuffed up like no one had lived there for years. A neighbor walked over and said he thought the place had been abandoned. That house? Been empty since winter. Saw some guy out there last week, but not sure he was supposed to be there. They checked security footage from the gas station across the street. A camera pointed toward the road showed my car and caught a clear shot of the guy on the porch, just for a second. They ran the plate number from the car supposedly registered to the house. It came back as invalid, didn't exist in the system. The number Sam gave me was now out of service. Not even voicemail, just dead air. Later that night, a friend of mine from work, he's into cybersecurity stuff, offered to check the link Sam had originally sent me for the listing. I forwarded it to him. 10 minutes later, he called back. That wasn't just a listing page, he said. It had a Trojan embedded in the script. Anyone who opened it gave access to local files, logins, saved passwords, that type of thing. You probably didn't even notice it. I stared at my laptop, suddenly cold. He told me to disconnect from Wi-Fi, shut everything down, and wipe browser data. I spent hours that night changing passwords, email, banking, social media, everything. I didn't sleep. I just kept thinking about how I'd stood out there like an idiot while someone might have been draining my life in 2 different ways, physically and digitally. In the morning, I felt hollow, like I'd spent the night fighting off something I couldn't see. I kept checking my bank apps, watching for weird activity. So far, nothing. But the idea that someone walked straight out of a dead house and right into my physical space while another person, or the same one, dug through my digital life, it made me feel like I wasn't safe anywhere. A few days later, I bought a TV from a real store. Caught an in-store promo. Nothing fancy, but it came with a receipt and a warranty card. I paid more than I wanted to. Way more. But I walked out of there knowing exactly who sold it to me. Who to call if it broke. No middleman, no strange links, no empty houses. My friends still laugh when I tell them what happened. They call it my paranoia tax. But I always say the same thing. It's cheaper than the hospital. Buying stuff from strangers is a lottery, and surviving the deal is the real jackpot. Last Thursday, I was looking for a decent laptop for freelance gigs. I didn't want to blow my whole budget, just something reliable enough to run Chrome with 20 tabs open and not melt. I saw a post on a local Telegram marketplace. Guy named Derek selling a Lenovo ThinkPad for $250. No scratches, no charger issues, clean keyboard. I messaged him, asked if it was still available. He replied almost instantly, said he could meet me that night, cash only. We agreed on a place not far from me, one of those 24-hour convenience stores just off the highway. Decent lighting, always at least 1 or 2 cars there. Felt safe enough. I got there just before midnight. The parking lot was mostly empty except for a delivery truck parked along the side. I messaged Derek, told him I'd arrived. He didn't reply for a few minutes, then suddenly texted, "Car died. I'm close. Come to this pin." A Google Maps link followed. I hesitated, but clicked. It was just 5 minutes away, near a field road that cuts behind a corn farm. I stared at the screen for a bit. It wasn't that late, and I really needed the laptop. I asked if he could make it back to the store, but he just replied, "Won't start. Just grab it here if you want it." That should have been enough for me to say no, but it wasn't. I followed the route. It took me off the main road, then onto gravel. No streetlights, just long, empty stretches of cornfields on both sides. The crunch of the tires on gravel started making me nervous. I turned the radio off to listen. Nothing but wind outside and my own breathing. After a few more turns, the navigation said I was 200 feet away. I saw a truck ahead on the right, angled a little off the road. No headlights, no cabin lights. Just sitting there. Old model, faded red paint, maybe 90s or early 2000s. Definitely a working truck. Looked like something used for hauling. I slowed down but didn't turn off my car. I stopped parallel to it, maybe 10 feet away. No movement inside. I texted, "I'm here." A reply came a second later. "It's in the cab. Just grab it. Leave the cash on the seat." No emojis, no thanks or sorry. Just those 2 lines. I didn't like it. I looked around. The fields were tall. Corn above eye level, swaying just slightly. No other cars, no lights, no houses. I put the car in park but kept the engine running. My headlights lit up the side of the pickup. I could see the inside dimly. Nothing looked out of place. Glove box shut. Some trash on the floor. A cardboard box was on the passenger seat, taped up, about the right size for a laptop. I opened my window halfway, trying to hear anything. Still just wind. My palms were sweating. I wiped them on my jeans. I figured I'd be fast. Open the truck door, grab the box, drop the envelope of cash, and leave. I stepped out, kept my door open and engine on. Gravel crunched under my feet. I walked slowly toward the pickup, eyes scanning the cornfields on both sides. Just before I reached the door, something moved in the corn. It wasn't loud, just a slight rustling. I froze. Tried to focus my eyes on the direction of the sound. Couldn't see anything. Then, out of the corner of my eye, something shifted on the other side of the pickup. A shadow, just for a second, like someone ducking or moving low between the corn and the edge of the road. My brain didn't process it fast enough, but my body did. I turned around, ran back to my car, and slammed the door shut. I locked the doors and shifted into reverse, tires crunching as I backed away fast. The cabin of the pickup suddenly lit up, like someone had turned on a flashlight or flipped a switch inside. At that same moment, both doors slammed open, one on each side. 2 figures bolted out, sprinting toward me. I didn't think, didn't blink, I just floored it. My car jerked backward, then I slammed it into drive and peeled out down the gravel path, dust and rocks flying up behind me. I didn't stop to check the mirror. I picked up my phone and hit the emergency contact button I had saved for roadside assistance. It went to a dispatcher. I told them someone tried to ambush me, gave them the location as best I could. My hands were shaking on the wheel, but I kept my foot on the gas until I saw the glowing lights of a gas station a few minutes down the road. I pulled into the lot, parked under the brightest light I could find, and waited. A patrol car showed up about 10 minutes later. The officer was calm, professional, asked me to stay put, then drove off toward the direction I came from. About 20 minutes later, he came back and told me they didn't find anyone. No vehicles, no people, not even a box. Just scattered footprints in the dirt. Men's boots, size 10 or 11. One set had deeper imprints, like someone had been crouched for a while. They took photos but said without more, there wasn't much they could do. I gave them the telegram handle, the screenshots, everything. They logged the report. Next morning, I checked the listing. Gone. I contacted the platform's customer support and sent them the screenshots and chat log. Couple hours later, they replied, said the account had been banned for violating safety policies. Then they added a line that stuck with me. This is a known scam format. The box is bait. The real target is your car, your cash, and sometimes more. That hit harder than I expected. I kept thinking how close I was to stepping right into it. Just a few more seconds, maybe 2 feet closer to the box, and I might have been surrounded. I deleted the chat, but not the memory. Now, anytime someone suggests a new meeting spot last minute, I cancel. Doesn't matter how good the deal is. Changed address? Deal's off. I don't care if they say they're busy, or if their signal's bad, or if they just broke down. I've learned the line between a normal transaction and a setup can be just one text. Few weeks later, the sheriff's office followed up. They told me there'd been 3 other incidents like mine within the same county. One guy lost his car and phone, left tied up near a drainage canal. Another never showed up, but the cops later found a burned-out sedan in a field near that same corn road. They said the patterns matched. Box in the cab. Instructions to just grab it. Same timing, always late. Same drop pin. After that, I installed a dash cam and stuffed a pepper spray canister into the glove box. I moved the listing app off my home screen, buried it behind folders I never open. I didn't delete it. I still needed it sometimes, but I didn't want it reminding me of that night. I stopped making nighttime pickups completely. If the seller can't meet in daylight with people around, I move on. I still buy and sell, but only in lit, public places with cameras and crowds. My money's come back. Slowly. I've found legit sellers since then, but the sense of safety never really did. That dirt road flashes through my dreams sometimes. Not nightmares, not exactly. Just flashes of red taillights in the dark, doors swinging open, footsteps crunching fast behind me. I see the box sometimes too, taped shut, always just out of reach. Sometimes I imagine what would have happened if I'd opened it, but I don't finish the thought. Now I say no more often. No to rushed plans. No to unknown roads. No to just grab it. Sometimes the best antivirus is not software. It's saying no before you even click. A few weeks ago, I answered a local classifieds ad that just said 42, free. That was it. No description. Just a location in the next town over, and a note that it was for pickup only. I fix and resell old electronics, so I figured maybe it was a busted TV someone wanted gone. People don't like paying recycling fees, I replied, and this woman named Jane answered within minutes. Said it was an old flat screen her brother left behind, that it was a gift if I could haul it. I asked if it still worked, and she just wrote, No clue. It's downstairs. Sounded normal enough. She gave me the address. Small duplex near the edge of town. Looked fine from outside, but the street was quiet. Not spooky, just still. I knocked once, and from inside, I heard a voice, a woman, a bit muffled, say, "It's open. Downstairs, just grab it." I called back, "All right, thanks," and stepped inside. Narrow hallway, a bare bulb swinging a little from the ceiling. Carpet was old, worn, with dark spots that looked like water damage. The basement door was already open to the left. No lights. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through thick dust in the air. I started going down. The stairs were wooden, creaky, one at a time. Each step groaned like no one had used them in years. It smelled like mildew and something faintly metallic. I figured maybe the basement flooded before. The air got colder. I reached the bottom and swept the flashlight across the room. It was a mess. Tools, boxes, old shelves, broken furniture. Looked like a storage area no one had touched in a long time. But then, in the far corner, I saw it. Something under a sheet. The shape was unmistakable. Rectangular, about 4 feet wide. A TV. I stepped closer. Dust stirred under my boots. The sheet was gray and thin, with yellow stains. Looked like it had been draped over for years. I reached out and lifted the edge. It was a big plasma screen, older model but still salvageable if the screen wasn't cracked. No cables, no remote, but that's normal. I crouched to check the ports when something scraped across the floor behind me. I froze. It was metal on concrete. Slow, like someone dragging a pipe. I stood up fast and turned, flashlight scanning the room. "Hello?" I called. "Jane?" No answer. Just that heavy silence again, thick like the air didn't move. Then, I heard it. Soft, deliberate footsteps, not far. Coming closer. Not running, not creeping. Just walking. Slow and steady. I backed up toward the stairs. My hand found the railing. The wood was rough, splintered under my fingers. I kept the flashlight aimed into the dark, but I couldn't see past the shelves stacked with boxes. I called again, louder this time. "Is someone down here?" Still nothing. Then above me, the sound of the basement door moving. Just a creak at first. Then a hard click. The kind you hear when a door is shut all the way and latched. I whipped my light up the stairwell. The top was dark. No outline of anyone. But I was sure, absolutely sure, that door had been open when I came down. My chest tightened. The steps below me creaked again. I turned back, sweeping the beam in a wide arc. There was no one in view, just the same cluttered room. But now, every sound felt louder. My own breath, the quiet hum from somewhere deeper in the walls, like old plumbing. I backed up another step. The railing flexed. The footsteps had stopped. I didn't wait. I took 2 quick steps up. The beam bounced off the ceiling. The basement stretched behind me, dark and motionless. I turned to climb faster, but then something clattered. Metal on wood this time, like a tool hitting the staircase. I stopped. My foot hovered above the next step. I turned again. Nothing. The space below looked the same. But then I saw it. One of the wrenches from the cluttered shelf was now on the second stair. I hadn't touched it. It wasn't there when I came down. I shouted, "Who's there? I'm just here for the TV, all right?" Still silence. But now, I could hear the soft scuff of shoes on concrete again. Closer this time. Deliberate. Like they were circling. I moved up another step. The beam flickered for a second, and I hit my phone to keep it steady. Suddenly, the light caught something. A shadow. It was fast, just a shape between 2 shelves. Could have been nothing. or it could have been a person ducking behind them. My heart was hammering now, but I didn't panic. Not yet. I kept climbing, fast now. 3 more steps and I'd reach the top. I grabbed the knob. It didn't move. I turned harder. It didn't budge. I pushed. Nothing. Door was shut tight. Locked. Behind me, the steps creaked again. I threw my weight against the door and it cracked open just enough to squeeze through. I bolted up the last step, slammed into something solid in the hallway. A person. A tall figure blocking the light. I didn't even stop to look. I dropped my shoulder and shoved. It staggered back against the wall, and I pushed past. My boots hit the tile and then the front door. I didn't close it. I didn't look back. Outside, the air felt wrong. Still, too quiet. I sprinted toward my van. The gate to the small yard was open now, banging once against the wall as I flew through. My keys were in my hand before I reached the driver's side. I yanked the door, climbed in, slammed it shut, locked it. Only then did I glance back toward the house. Nothing. Just the door slightly ajar and a shadow in the hallway. I grabbed my phone again, pulled up the ad just to make sure I hadn't imagined it. The post, 42, free, was gone. Gone while I was still staring at the screen, like it never existed. The thread showed nothing. No history. No replies. Just blank space. I didn't drive off right away. I sat there breathing hard, listening, watching the house like it might change shape or reveal something. But it stayed the same. One porch light flickering. One open door. Dead quiet. 2 hours later, the cops showed up. I had already called them from the gas station down the road, too shaken to explain properly. They sent 2 units. We walked through the place together. They cleared it top to bottom. I didn't go back inside. One officer came out holding the sheet. Said the only thing under it was an empty TV shell. Just a frame, no internals. Nothing of value. Another found multiple sets of shoe prints in the dust, none matching mine. Tracks led in from the side door, but none out. No sign of the woman who answered the door. No sign of anyone else. A neighbor watched from his porch. Officer went to talk to him. Came back shaking his head. "That house?" he said. "Been empty for at least 3 weeks. Owner's out of state. Place is supposed to be locked up." He pointed out the boards had been removed from the side entrance recently. Not official work. Just pried off. One of the cops glanced at me. "Let me give you some advice," he said. "Any ad that sends you straight to the basement, that's not a gift. That's bait." After that, I stopped answering random free ads. Didn't matter what they were offering. Even now, months later, I still can't get the sound of that basement out of my head. The creak of every step, the dry smell of the air, the way it got quiet right before the door shut. I made myself a rule. I don't pick up tech unless it's on the porch, in daylight, with someone visible. No basements, no back rooms, no locked doors. Doesn't matter if it's free, especially if it's free. That word doesn't mean safe. Those stairs, I still hear them sometimes when I'm dozing off. That slow groan of wood. It's not fear exactly, more like a warning. The sound my brain won't let me forget. The detective followed up later. Said based on the tracks and how it played out, someone likely wanted to trap me down there. Maybe grab my van once I was out of sight. Maybe more. Said I was lucky. That if I hadn't bolted when I did, they might have closed that door for good. Now every pickup is cautious. My flashlight's brighter. I check all doors behind me. The worst thing in a basement isn't what's hiding in the dark. It's the staircase you walk down thinking everything's fine. About 6 months ago, I listed my old sedan for sale online. Nothing fancy, just a silver 2006 model I barely used anymore. I took some photos, posted a short description, and waited. A few people messaged, but the first one who seemed really serious was a woman named Bianca. She messaged that same evening, polite, no lowballing, asked if she could stop by the next day. Her profile seemed normal. She even used proper punctuation, which always gives a better impression. She showed up right on time. Mid-30s maybe. Dark hair and a low ponytail, jeans, black jacket. Didn't talk much. She looked over the car slowly, circled it, checked the tires. Didn't ask weird questions. I handed her the keys, and she asked if she could take it around the block. I said sure, thinking maybe she'd want to feel how it handled. I stood on the sidewalk and watched her drive off. She came back in about 5 minutes, parked exactly where it was before, handed the keys back, and said, "Thank you. I'll think about it." She left in a white SUV, which was parked across the street. I didn't catch the brand, but it looked newer and clean. I waved as she pulled away. I didn't think much of it. A lot of people test drive a car and ghost you after. Around 2:40 that night, my car alarm went off. I sleep with my window cracked, and the sharp sound made me sit up immediately. I live on a quiet street, one of those cul-de-sac neighborhoods where nothing ever happens. So when something does, it stands out. I grabbed my phone, slid on my jacket, and looked out the window. I saw her. The same woman from earlier, Bianca. She was crouched behind the sedan, messing with the trunk latch. It took me a second to believe what I was seeing. She wasn't even in a rush. She had a small flashlight in her mouth and was using what looked like pliers or some kind of cutting tool to work at the lock. My porch light didn't reach that far, so she was just a moving shadow. But it was definitely her. Same jacket, same hair, same way she kept glancing over her shoulder. My hands were shaking, but I unlocked the back door and stepped outside. I didn't want to get too close, so I just flipped on the floodlight mounted on the garage. The whole driveway lit up instantly, bright as a football field. She jerked upright like she'd been shocked. I shouted, "Hey!" as loud as I could. She froze for half a second, then dropped the tool. It clattered on the pavement. She sprinted across the street toward the same white SUV I saw earlier. I hadn't noticed it parked there before. No lights on, no sound. Just sitting in the dark between two houses. The thing that made my stomach drop was that it had no license plates, front or back, just a smooth blank panel. She jumped in the passenger side. The SUV pulled out without headlights, turned the corner, and disappeared. All within 10 seconds. I walked over and picked up the tool she dropped. A pair of old needle-nose pliers. Looked rusted, like they were pulled out of a junk drawer. I didn't touch anything else, just went inside and called the police. They came pretty fast, maybe 12 minutes later. 2 officers, both looked tired but alert. They took a report, asked for the ad I'd posted, and had me email them the messages between us. One of them dusted the pliers for prints and bagged them. They said whoever she was, she likely wasn't working alone, and the SUV driver was probably more involved than she was. I gave them every detail I could remember. What she looked like, the make of the SUV, how long she stayed, what direction they left in. I also told them that her profile was still active when I checked again before they arrived, but all the photos were gone. I tried calling her phone while the officers were still there, straight to voicemail. Tried texting too, just one message. "Why were you at my house?" Nothing back. 10 minutes later, her number was disconnected. I couldn't sleep after they left. Every sound outside made me jump. I kept pacing between the windows, checking the driveway, waiting for headlights that never came. The next afternoon, my neighbor sent me a video from his doorbell camera. It showed the white SUV circling the block around noon on the same day Bianca came to see the car. No one got out, but it passed slowly, twice. Once heading east, then looping back from the west 5 minutes later. He hadn't thought much of it at the time, but after I told him what happened, he checked the footage and sent it to me. Same SUV, no plates, same clean body and tinted windows. That was enough for me. I pulled my listing offline and canceled every one-on-one appointment I had set up. A few people had already scheduled test drives, but I messaged them all and said the car was no longer available for private viewings. From that point on, I decided to meet only in public spaces. I reshot the photos and updated the listing to say, "Final sale only, meetup under surveillance." A guy named Kevin reached out about a week later. His messages were normal, no weird questions, and he didn't push to see it at home. I suggested we meet in a big shopping center lot near the highway. Tons of cameras, lots of people, always busy. He agreed. We met in front of a pharmacy entrance, right under a camera dome, around 11 in the morning. He showed up early, looked over the car, checked the oil, asked the usual questions. Normal stuff. Paid in cash, signed the title. The whole thing took maybe 20 minutes. When he drove off, I felt something I hadn't felt in a while. Relief. I stood there a few extra minutes just watching the taillights vanish in daylight. The car was finally out of my life. 2 days later, a detective called. Said they ran the prints from the pliers Bianca dropped. They matched a woman connected to several car theft attempts across 3 counties. She used fake names and burner phones. The SUV had been spotted in at least 2 other incidents, both where a buyer reported suspicious behavior. No arrests so far, just reports. She and her partner were still out there, operating in that gray zone where nothing quite sticks. The detective was honest. Said it might be tough to get a warrant or press charges unless they were caught in the act again. I didn't expect much more, but it still rattled me. Knowing she wasn't some random amateur but part of a pattern made it worse. This was her method, posing as a buyer, scouting the location, then coming back later. I didn't want to wait around for another visit. That weekend, I bought motion sensors, doorbell cameras, and changed all the locks on my doors and garage. It wasn't cheap, but I didn't care. I also started keeping my phone volume up at night. Every time a car passed on the street, I woke up. I'd lie still, listening for footsteps or the sound of a door creaking. I never saw her again, but I stayed ready. What kept running through my head was how close I'd come to stepping outside that night. If I hadn't turned on the floodlight and stayed back, I might have confronted her up close. I don't know if she had anything on her. I don't know what the guy in the SUV might have done if I'd chased her or gotten a better look. I got lucky. That's all it was. I've been slowly working on a motorcycle build in my garage for the last year. Just a hobby, but I'd been planning to sell the sedan to fund some parts. After this whole mess, I decided to put that project on hold. Security's more important than horsepower right now. One thing I've realized is how much information we give away online without thinking. People post their addresses, their routines, what they're selling, where they'll be. It's all there. And someone like Bianca uses it to plan her next move. It's not just about the car. It's about access. That's what scared me most. She knew where I lived. She came back. From now on, if someone wants to think about it, they can do that somewhere else. Not in front of my house, not in my driveway. Let them think all they want, but from a distance. The price of a car is negotiable. My privacy isn't. Right after drama school, I was chasing every casting I could find. Anything remotely related to acting, I was on it. One ad stood out. It promised quick pay, short sessions, said they were looking for someone fresh and expressive. It didn't mention the project type in much detail, just that it was experimental visual work for a creative agency. I knew that usually meant weird stuff or unpaid work, but I was broke. And the name Fred attached to the email sounded casual, not too formal, not too sketchy either. He replied fast, said I had the look they needed, and asked if I could drop by his place. He called it a studio apartment setup for a quick screen test. I didn't love the idea, but he insisted it was just to save on space and money. He lived near the edge of the city, in one of those older buildings with tall wooden doors and a broken intercom. I buzzed, and the lock clicked without a word. Inside, the hallway was dim, narrow, smelled like old carpets and reheated food. His unit was on the second floor. He opened the door wearing a gray hoodie, holding a phone. He smiled, kind of rushed, and waved me in like we were already running late. The place was stripped down. One camera on a tripod, a single tall lamp throwing a harsh light across the empty room. No furniture except for 2 folding chairs and a mattress pushed up in the corner. The windows had thick curtains pulled tight. "Sorry for the mess," he said. "The landlord's redoing the kitchen." I didn't see any tools or signs of work. The air was stale, like the windows hadn't been opened in a long time. He poured me some water in a disposable cup and pointed to one of the chairs. "Let's get started, yeah?" He hit record without clapping or slating, just pointed the camera and started asking questions. The first few were standard. "What's your name? What agency? Any experience on camera?" I answered easily. Then he asked where I lived. I gave a vague area. He asked who I lived with. I smiled and said, "My brother and I split rent," which was a lie. I lived alone. I didn't like the way he looked up from the camera when I said that. Not surprised, just noting it. Then he asked about my daily schedule. When I left for auditions, when I got back. I laughed a bit, made a joke about chaotic actor life, and brushed off the details. He nodded, still filming, eyes watching more than listening. He shifted slightly in the chair, leaned forward. "You'd be okay doing something a little bold, right? Not nude, not porn, just brave work. Real emotion, raw movement, like performance art." I didn't respond right away. He kept rolling. "We could try something now, a little test shoot, for boldness. You don't have to prep, just be." My mouth was dry. I asked if he usually shot this kind of thing in a home studio. I suggested renting a proper space, mentioned a friend who had access to one near downtown. I kept my voice light, like I wasn't nervous. He stopped smiling, just looked at me for a beat too long. I gathered my folder, headshots, resume, a script I had barely glanced at, and stood up. "Thanks for your time," I said, already walking toward the door. He stood up too, moving just slightly, but enough to block my path. He wasn't aggressive, just there. Like it was some kind of misunderstanding and movement. But we both knew it wasn't. I didn't change my tone, didn't raise my voice. I just looked him straight in the eye and said, "Can you let me through, please?" He didn't answer. The silence stretched. He stared like he was deciding something. I kept still, not stepping back, not showing anything in my face. Finally, he shifted sideways. One slow step, not an apology, just moved. I walked out without rushing. Down the hallway, down the stairs, out the building. I didn't look back. The second the door shut behind me, I felt like I could breathe again. When I got home, I went straight to my laptop and reported the listing on the casting site. I included the address, his name, everything he'd asked during the session. The support team said they'd review it. By the next day, the post was gone. 6 weeks passed. I was back in the routine. Small auditions, catering gigs in between, still broke. I had almost forgotten about Fred. Then I saw a news article on my phone while waiting for a bus. The headline didn't register at first. Then the photo loaded. Fred, in handcuffs, surrounded by cops outside what looked like the same apartment building. He'd been arrested for stalking and attempting to lure models under false job offers. There were multiple charges. A few women had filed complaints. Apparently, he'd followed one of them home after an audition. Another had her phone cloned. The article mentioned ongoing investigations, but one line stuck out. Early reports from a prior incident provided critical leads. That was me. A few days later, a detective called. They got my contact from the casting site's complaint log. He asked me to confirm the time and place I'd met Fred, and said I probably helped prevent worse. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like someone who got lucky walking a razor's edge. The fear took longer to shake than I expected. I replayed it in my head, the moment he stood in front of the door, the pause before he moved. What if he hadn't? Now I only take jobs through verified union agencies. No more shady online posts, no more studio apartments. It's slower, fewer gigs, more paperwork, but no weird questions about where I live or when I'm alone. I tell new actors the same thing every time. No doesn't kill your career. A cheap opportunity can cost you way more than it pays. If a director can't afford a proper studio, they can't afford your safety either. My portfolio's growing slower than I'd like, but I'm still here to grow it. That's enough. I had just finished college and was completely broke. My laptop had died during finals week, and I couldn't afford to replace it. I spent most of my time browsing local classified ads, hoping for something cheap, anything that could get me through job applications and maybe a few freelance gigs. That's when I found a listing on an old forum. Free laptop, working condition, first come, first served. No pictures, just a short description and a phone number. The address led me to an older part of town I'd never visited before. The streets were quiet, narrow, and lined with tall hedges and faded picket fences. Most of the houses looked like they hadn't been touched in decades. Peeling paint, rusted gates, old cars sunken into gravel driveways. The address matched a small gray cottage at the end of a cul-de-sac. It had no number plate, but the paint on the mailbox was just barely readable. I walked up the front path, hesitated for a second, then knocked. The door opened almost immediately. A man in his mid-30s stood there, thin, short beard, hoodie zipped all the way up. He didn't smile. Just said, "You here for the laptop?" I nodded. He said, "All right, wait here. I'll grab it. Just a minute." Then he turned and walked into the house, leaving the door open behind him. Inside, it was dark and smelled like wood and something slightly damp. The hallway was narrow, with faded wallpaper and no decorations. To my left was a small room. Looked like a dining room, though there was only a round table and 2 wooden chairs. Nothing on the walls, no curtains on the windows. The guy walked straight through a door in the back and disappeared. I stepped inside the room and stood near the table, waiting. I looked around. No sound except the faint creaking of floorboards somewhere deeper in the house. There weren't any personal touches, no photos, no books, nothing to suggest someone actually lived here. After a minute or two, I glanced at my phone. No signal. I walked over to the window, tried holding my phone up, but nothing changed. I stood there for another minute. Still no sound from the back of the house. Then I heard the front door behind me slam shut. I turned fast and went back into the hallway. The door was closed. I grabbed the handle and tried to pull it open. It didn't budge. I twisted the lock. Nothing. I pulled again, harder. The door rattled slightly but didn't move. Then I felt it. Someone was holding the handle from the outside. I yanked it again. It jerked, but didn't open. I froze, listening. No footsteps, no voice, just quiet pressure on the other side of the door. I backed away, heart pounding in my ears. I turned down the hallway and walked quickly to the window in the dining room. I slid it open a few inches, enough to stick my arm out, and raised my phone again. One bar flickered on. I dropped to the floor next to the table, typed out a text to 911. Locked in house help. Hit send. Message sent. I scanned the room for anything I could use. Nothing. Just the chairs, the table, bare walls. I looked at the hallway again. Still no sign of the guy. The back door he disappeared through was still closed. Then I heard it. The sound of a door opening somewhere farther in the house. A click. Slow, steady footsteps. Not running, just walking. Moving toward the front. I backed into the dining room again, eyes scanning for somewhere to hide. There was a closet door to the right of the window, just inside the room. I pulled it open. It was a shallow utility closet, just deep enough to stand inside. Some cleaning supplies on a shelf, old vacuum on the floor. I squeezed in, pulled the door almost closed, and stood still. Through the gap, I saw the shadow pass down the hallway. Then I heard another set of footsteps. Different pace, heavier. Voices followed. 2 men, low and quiet. Jacket pockets? Checked. Just a phone. Old one. Shoes? Nikes. 10.5. Wallet? Nope. Just the phone. No bag, nothing else. They paused. One of them turned toward the room. I held my breath, pressed back against the wall, barely able to move. The door creaked open another inch from the draft. I didn't touch it. I heard one of them say, "Check under the table." As I stood frozen in the closet, barely breathing, my phone lit up and vibrated in my hand. Unknown caller. The ringtone started, loud, cutting through the silence. I panicked and fumbled to mute it, but the first ring had already echoed off the bare walls. The footsteps outside stopped. One of them cursed. Then the boots pounded toward the room. I killed the ringtone just as the closet door flung open. But they were too slow. I'd already shoved myself into the narrow space behind the hanging mop and pushed the shelf forward with my shoulder. It wasn't much of a barrier, but it broke the line of sight for half a second. The guy reached in, arms sweeping through, grabbing at nothing. I didn't wait. I shoved the door outward hard, caught him in the chest, and bolted for the hallway. The front door still wouldn't budge. I spun toward the back, but before I could move, I heard the sound of a siren. Close. Not just one, but 2, rising fast, cutting through the quiet neighborhood. The guys heard it too. One of them shouted, and I caught the clatter of something metal hitting the floor behind me. Their boots thundered down the hallway toward the back. I ducked into the side room again, crouched low beside the table. I didn't know if they saw me. I just stayed down, silent, counting heartbeats. Another door slammed open, this time at the rear of the house. I heard their voices again, but they were already fading. They weren't searching anymore. They were running. More doors slammed. Then quiet. Outside, the sirens stopped right in front of the house. I held still, waited, barely breathing. The front door burst open a few seconds later. Wood splintered, and I heard voices, clear, calm, professional. "Police, anyone inside?" I stood up, stumbled into the hallway, hands up. "Here, I'm here." 2 officers entered with flashlights and weapons drawn. They cleared the house fast, every room, every corner, but it was empty. The back door was still swinging open when they reached it. Fresh boot prints led out through the grass into a wooded alley behind the lot. The cops said it looked like they had planned the exit. knew the neighborhood. The house had no furniture except the table and 2 chairs. No appliances, no dishes, no signs of anyone actually living there. In the basement, the phone lines were cut. The fuse box had been tampered with. No working cameras in the area. Every wire snipped clean. Whoever they were, they knew what they were doing. We tried to trace the number from the listing. Burner. One call made from a public Wi-Fi network at a gas station. No way to trace it. The guy who met me, Ken, or whatever his name was, never appeared again. His voice didn't match any known identities. The free laptop? Total bait. There was never any computer. They told me I was lucky. If I hadn't sent that message when I did, it might have ended a lot differently. No telling what they wanted. Robbery, maybe worse. The house was a trap, clean, quiet, and ready for a quick exit. I fit their profile. Young, broke, no backup, nothing to track me. The detective who debriefed me said I did the one thing that probably saved me. I acted early, didn't wait around for something to feel more wrong. Said these guys rely on hesitation, the delay between suspicion and decision. A few weeks later, I bought a refurbished laptop from a real store. It wasn't fancy, but it came with a receipt and a warranty. Now every time my phone pings with an unknown number, I flinch just a little. Every listing I read online, I read twice. I searched the name, the address, reverse image, check the photos. I never meet strangers alone anymore. Not in houses, not in quiet neighborhoods, not even for a great deal. Nothing online is free. You either pay with money or you pay with something else. That day, I almost paid everything. Next time someone says, just close the door behind you, they'll find me already outside, phone in hand, eyes on the street. I learned how to survive before I learned how to code.